There are people who were never meant to become heroes, yet fate forces them to be. And Wang Lin is one of them. Born into an ordinary family, he carried a simple wish in his heart to cultivate immortality and repay his parents' kindness. But the world is never that kind. No talent, no background, no guidance, everything seemed to whisper to him, the path of cultivation is not for you. Yet in the midst of that hopelessness, Wang Lin chose something that very few have the courage to do. He kept going. He walked forward with stubbornness. He walked forward with longing. He walked forward with everything left in his resilient heart. A strange opportunity came to him, opening a path of cultivation drenched in blood and loneliness. There, every improvement required a sacrifice. Every step forward meant losing something precious. To grow stronger, he had to endure 100 times more than ordinary people. Renegade Immortal is the tale of a man who never submits. A man willing to defy the heavens, defy fate, and defy the world just to protect what his heart refuses to let go. This is not merely an immortal cultivation story. This is the journey of a soul so powerful that even eternity must bow. And today, I invite you to step into that journey, the journey of Wang Lin, the man who walks against the will of heaven to find the answer meant for himself. Wang Lin's expression suddenly became serious as he listened to Qing Xian's words. Elder Li, a disciple of the Luo sect of the Fire Flame Kingdom. At this moment, the image of a woman suddenly appeared in his mind. At the same time, the name of that woman kept echoing in his head. It can't be, Wang Lin thought to himself. How could such a coincidence exist in the world? A frail girl from the past had suddenly become an elder of the Cloud Heaven sect. Wang Lin didn't know what to say. He thought to himself that he was overthinking things. Elder Li's beauty is truly breathtaking. When she was in the Fire Flame Kingdom, she was one of the top beauties. After the Fire Flame Kingdom was attacked by the Xuanwu Kingdom, the Luo sect suffered heavy losses. Some of their disciples had to flee for their lives. If that hadn't happened, Elder Li wouldn't have come to our Cloud Heaven sect, Cheng Shan said with a sigh. Wang Lin nodded, saying nothing, and continued walking forward. Cheng Shan glared at him, then hurriedly followed, smiling and saying, "Senior brother, when are we going to the West Garden?" Wang Lin glanced at the sky and said, "After I pay my respects to the Grand Master, I'll go to the West Garden with you. But I must say beforehand that I don't know that little girl. I don't even know her name. So I don't know if we'll be able to get into the West Garden." Cheng Shan was stunned, his eyes darting around a bit before he laughed and said, "That's all right. That little girl, I know her name. Just say you're looking for her then." "Brother, I trust my judgment." Wang Lin said nothing and continued walking towards the South Garden. Along the way, Cheng Shan talked incessantly. It was clear he enjoyed discussing matters related to the Cloud Heaven sect and some rumors. After a while, all the information poured out of his mouth. The man's voice was quite interesting, so Wang Lin didn't find it bothersome. In this way, the two of them quickly arrived at the Southern Garden. Speaking of elderly, she hasn't been at our sect for very long. Perhaps only about 100 years at most. However, her alchemy skills are truly superb. I heard some seniors say that back then, elderly competed with 2 fifth-rank alchemists from the Cloud Heaven sect and ultimately didn't lose a single bit. She even created one of the 3 treasures of our Cloud Heaven sect's 5th-rank elixirs, the Cultivation Demon Elixir. When mentioning that elixir, his expression showed admiration. Cultivation Demon Elixir. Wang Lin was stunned. This elixir had such a strange name. Could it be that after consuming it, one could cultivate demonic power? Seeing Wang Lin's expression, Cheng Shan chuckled smugly and said, "Ha ha. That elixir certainly has a strange name. Initially, after I finished refining it, I asked Elder Li for its name. After some thought, Elder Li revealed this name. Although the elixir is called Demon Cultivation, its effects are actually not suitable for those who cultivate demonic arts." "What are its effects?" Wang Lin was somewhat surprised. Elder Li, a disciple of the Luo sect in the Fire-Burning Kingdom, mentioned this elixir. This seems to have some connection to its effects are probably very great. but I don't know what its effects are. Qingshan shrugged self-deprecatingly and continued, with my status. How could I possibly know its effects? It's one of the 3 treasures of our cloud heaven sect. Wang Lin didn't pay much attention. After nodding, the two walked towards the south garden. At this moment, a bridge appeared before him. Beneath the bridge, a stream flowed gently. A wave of spiritual energy emanated from the water, creating a feeling of tranquility. Looking down, one could see several colorful fish leisurely swimming and flicking their tails. Actually, there are some rumors related to the demon cultivation pill. Would you like to hear them, brother? Qingshan stopped before the bridge and smiled. I'm listening, Wang Lin replied, his gaze following the bridge into the interior. He could only see a swirling white mist obscuring his vision. Not far away, he could only see the low-rise buildings with their incredibly elegant carvings, giving off an otherworldly aura. It's rumored that Elderly lived in the demon cultivation sea for a time when she was young. Therefore, the demon cultivation pill is a story from her past. Of course, that's just a rumor. In fact, there are many rumors about Elderly. When we have time, we'll talk about it, Qingshan quickly said. After hearing this, Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He bowed to Qingshan and then walked towards the bridge. Brother Wang Lin, remember this. I'll wait for you here. Don't forget we have important things to do. Qingshan hurriedly called out. Wang Lin ignored him and walked across the bridge. After entering the south garden, the fog grew thicker and thicker, making it impossible to see anything beyond 3 meters. If Wang Lin's main body were here, he certainly wouldn't care. He could simply use his divine consciousness to pinpoint the path. But now Wang Lin's clone had only reached the 8th level of the condensation chess stage. Therefore, he could only move forward slowly. The deeper he went, the thicker the fog became. Gradually, his visibility decreased from 3 zhang to just 1 zhang. At that moment, a voice echoed from within the fog. The Southern Garden's prohibition. Outer Garden disciples are not allowed to enter without a token. Wang Lin stopped. His expression remained calm as he said in a clear voice, Disciple Wang Lin has come to pay his respects to Ancestor Li. The voice fell silent for a moment. Then, as if an invisible hand had parted the fog before Wang Lin, a small path appeared. The path wound and stretched deep into the Southern Garden. Follow this path and you will reach Elderly's residence. Go. The voice continued. This time, Wang Lin sensed a hint of resentment in the voice. Wang Lin said nothing more and followed the path. At this point, he occasionally heard distant music playing in the background. Following the music, after a short while, Wang Lin reached the end of the path. A building constructed of white stone appeared before him. Through the door of the building, he could see a figure inside. She sat upright, a zither before her. A white curtain obscured her face. As Wang Lin approached, the music emanating from within permeated his body and soul, leaving him mesmerized. Wang Lin remained silent, listening intently. After a moment, the music faded. A gentle, soothing voice echoed from within the building. Are you Wang Lin? The voice startled Wang Lin, his eyes showing disbelief. But in an instant, his gaze returned to normal. After a moment of silence, Wang Lin slowly opened his mouth and said, yes. No sooner had he finished speaking than a sound echoed. Inside the pavilion, a string on the zither in the person's hand suddenly snapped. Immediately afterward, the window of the pavilion opened, revealing a captivating and enchanting face that left others mesmerized. Her aloof expression was enchanting. Her hands were soft and white. To describe her, one could only say her face was as fresh as a flower, her voice as clear as a bird's song, and her skin as white as snow. In an instant, her eyes became calm, scrutinizing Wang Lin. After a moment, her expression turned troubled again, and she gently lowered the curtain, concealing the face that made it impossible for others to control their emotions. Wang Lin's gaze remained calm. The moment she opened her mouth to speak, he realized she hadn't figured out his identity. After so many years, she had now become an elder of the Cloud Heaven sect. Although Wang Lin's clone's cultivation level wasn't high enough, his eyesight remained sharp. He could see that her cultivation had reached the early stage of the core formation realm. In other sects, it would be unbelievable for masters and disciples to have equivalent cultivation levels. But in the inner courtyard of the Cloud Heaven sect, it was normal. The ranking criteria in the inner courtyard weren't cultivation, but alchemy. Therefore, it was common for masters to have lower cultivation levels than their disciples. The only difference was that the Cloud Heaven sect's standards were completely different from the outside world. Of course, to be able to refine elixirs, one had to reach a certain level of cultivation. Therefore, although cultivation wasn't considered crucial, sometimes it was necessary to improve it for the sake of alchemy. And how many people in this world could be like Li Muan, who, with only early-stage core formation cultivation, could refine elixirs that only nascent soul-level alchemists could produce? Wang Lin sighed inwardly. Unexpectedly, things changed so quickly. 200 years, though not a very long time, was by no means short either. Her appearance was several times more beautiful than it was back then. The events of over 200 years ago seemed to have happened just yesterday. Yet, it felt so distant that it was impossible to easily bridge that gap. Wang Lin had no intention of approaching to acknowledge her. His appearance was no longer that of Ma Liang from back then. Therefore, Li Muwen was unlikely to recognize him. "What is it?" Li Muwen asked, sitting inside the building. However, her voice held a hint of melancholy. Wang Lin took a deep breath, a bitter smile in his heart. He sighed softly and said, "Disciple, disciple." Facing an old acquaintance, Wang Lin couldn't clearly utter the words disciple. Li Muwen, sitting inside the building, trembled upon hearing Wang Lin's voice. She raised her right hand, and her face was instantly covered by a purple veil. Then she opened the door and went out. After stepping outside, she looked at Wang Lin in surprise. "My alchemy furnace is broken," Wang Lin said calmly and slowly. Li Muwen looked at Wang Lin carefully. Then she withdrew her gaze, though there was a hint of complexity in her eyes, and said, "Are you from Two Kingdom?" Wang Lin was silent for a moment, then nodded. Li Muwen sighed softly, her expression returning to normal, and said, "The alchemy furnace is obviously broken because the spiritual power in your body increased too quickly, causing the flame to become unstable. That's a very normal phenomenon. Just persevere for a while and it can be resolved." After saying that, she thought for a moment and opened her storage bag, taking out an alchemy furnace. "If you are a disciple of Chulin, I will give you this alchemy furnace. You can use it to refine pills, and it will last for 100 times without breaking. But if after 100 times you still cannot control the fire naturally, then it is clear that you have no affinity for alchemy. At that point, you should give up trying to refine pills. Just go to an outer sect to cultivate." After saying this, Li Muwen waved her hand. The alchemy furnace immediately flew to Wang Lin's face. After Wang Lin received it, he put it into his storage bag. His expression remained calm, but his heart was extremely troubled. Every minute he stood there, it felt like a burning fire was raging inside him, causing him immense discomfort. Therefore, he clasped his hands together, turned around, and left. "Ma Liang," Li Muwen suddenly called out softly. Wang Lin was startled, turned his head to look, and finally looked at Li Muwen with a puzzled expression. Li Muwen sighed inwardly and said, "Go. If you don't understand anything, just come and ask me." After speaking, she turned and went inside the building. Immediately afterward, the sound of the zither echoed from within the room. This time, the sound of the zither had a touch of melancholy. His eyes held a hint of complexity. He looked deeply at the figure by the window, then sighed softly and turned to leave. Inside the building, Li Muwen released her fingers, remaining silent for a moment. Suddenly, she stood up and opened the window. Her gaze was fixed on something far away. After a long while, her delicate eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she murmured, "Something's wrong. How could there be such identical sounds in this world?" Even if there were, their eyes couldn't possibly be the same. Especially just now, Wang Lin's eyes were too calm. A normal person certainly couldn't do that. Her eyes flashed, and she raised her right hand to touch her forehead. Instantly, a drop of fresh blood flew from her forehead. The drop of blood was a deep crimson, yet it emitted a chilling aura that sent shivers down one's spine. This was indeed a gift from Wang Lin before he left. It was a drop of soul blood containing a trace of supreme, realm divine consciousness. In fact, without that trace of divine consciousness, Li Muan wouldn't have been able to escape when the fire-burning alliance was attacked by the Xuanwu kingdom. But if it really was him, why did the soul blood show no reaction just now? Li Muan pursed her lips, then sighed. Just then, a voice suddenly rang out from outside the building. "Sister, could you come out for a moment?" Li Muan frowned and pushed open the door. She saw a middle-aged cultivator with a refined and elegant demeanor standing there, smiling. His handsome and refined appearance easily drew people's attention. Upon seeing Li Muan, admiration appeared in his eyes. He spoke gently. "Sister, last month you mentioned you were missing a piece of dragon rock. I searched all over Chu Kingdom and finally found this small piece of dragon rock in a place full of rubble." As he spoke, he took out a jade box from his storage bag. Inside the box was a red plant, as thick as an arm. Li Muan's gaze was calm. She didn't pay attention to the jade box, saying, "Thank you for your kindness, senior brother's son. But I've already found a replacement. Moreover, I successfully refined the elixir 3 days ago. Please keep this for yourself." The middle-aged man pushed the box aside, his voice still gentle, saying, "Sister, you and I are both direct disciples of the Yantia sect. If you want to reach a high level in alchemy, you must choose a direct disciple to be your cultivation partner. We've known each other for a long time. I'm sure you understand my intentions." A cold glint flashed in Li Muan's eyes as she stared at the middle-aged man, saying each word distinctly. "Let's not mention this yet." The middle-aged man silently looked at Li Muan, then after a moment, softly said, "Sister, you came here from the fire-burning kingdom all those years ago. If I hadn't saved you, you would have disappeared long ago. You know how I've treated you all these years, don't you? I want to know why you're still so resolute." Li Muan was silent for a moment, a figure involuntarily appearing in her mind. After a while, she slowly said, "There's no reason." The middle-aged man sighed, his voice still gentle, saying, "Sister, the ancestor himself gave the order, so the outcome is already decided. Think carefully about it." After saying that, he glanced at Li Muan, shook his head with a bitter smile, and turned to leave. Li Muan remained standing there silently, thinking for a while before turning back into the building. Her shadow stretched across the ground, revealing a profound sadness. Wang Lin, his heart filled with complex emotions, left the southern garden. Just as he crossed the bridge, he saw Changshan waiting at its foot. The moment he saw Wang Lin, Changshan immediately approached, stammering, "Senior brother, how was it? Did everything go smoothly?" Wang Lin glanced at him and said, "Let's go." Changshan, having anticipated this, immediately beamed, "Senior brother, it's almost dark now. Let's hurry a bit. You wait here. I'll summon 2 animals for us to ride." He then raised his hand to his mouth and whistled. Suddenly, a sound echoed from afar. Immediately afterward, several animal roars resounded. Wang Lin looked up and saw 2 dark figures rushing towards them from a distance. Before long, the dark shadows darted to within 10 yards of Changshan. Unexpectedly, they were 2 spirit apes. One was about 1.5 yards tall, while the smaller one was nearly 1 yard tall. Their paws were clenched, their eyes blazing red, and they bared their teeth and snarled at Changshan, seemingly angry. Changshan quickly coughed and said loudly, "Isn't it just borrowing something from you? After all, we've been friends for decades. Give us a ride for a short distance, and I'll give you the item, okay?" The 2 spirit apes roared. After glancing at each other, one of them reached out and grabbed Changshan. Chengxian didn't dodge, letting it grab him. After seizing Chengxian, the spirit ape threw him onto its back and then sped away like lightning. At this moment, the smaller spirit ape looked at Wang Lin with anger. After roaring a few times, it also tried to grab Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he dodged to the side. Immediately afterward, he stomped his foot and jumped onto its back. The ape didn't seem to mind and immediately accelerated to catch up. The speed of the spirit ape was incredibly fast, like riding on clouds and wind. Chengxian obviously did this often, so after saying a few words, he took a wine pouch from his storage bag. After taking a large gulp, he laughed loudly and said, riding an ape to the West Garden, "Only I, Chengxian, can do this in the entire Cloud Heaven sect. Ha ha." Wang Lin smiled wryly. Although Chengxian was somewhat boisterous, he wasn't particularly repulsive. Even though Wang Lin was bothered, he didn't mind much. At this moment, after seeing Chengxian like this, his troubled mood after reuniting with an old friend calmed down a little. Chengxian threw the wine pouch behind him. Wang Lin caught it with his hand. After glancing at Chengxian, the sad image of Li Muan flashed through his mind. He couldn't help but raise the wine pouch to his mouth and take a large gulp. As he approached, the woman leapt down from the air, looking at Wang Lin in surprise and saying, "You came to find me?" At this moment, the woman surnamed Cheng frowned and said, "Sister Yue, do you know this person?" Luo Yue quickly turned around and said, "I know him." "Sister, he entered the sect at the same time as me." The woman surnamed Cheng glanced at Wang Lin again, then gave Chengxian a warning look before leaving with her sisters. Only 3 people remained on the ground. "How do you know my name?" Luo Yue widened her eyes, not looking at Chengxian but focusing only on Wang Lin, asking. Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then calmly said, "If you find it convenient, bring this person into the East Garden to see Sister Tong. If you can't meet her, then so be it." After saying that, he turned and left, leaving Chengxian and Luo Yue staring after him in astonishment. "What's going on? Did he call me just for this?" Luo Yue stomped her foot and said loudly. Unfortunately, Wang Lin didn't turn around, his figure disappearing into the distance. Chengxian sighed inwardly, thinking that brother Wang Lin was truly a remarkable person. He didn't even bother to look at such a beautiful woman. This level of cultivation was probably something she could never achieve in her lifetime. "Sister Yue, are you free now, sir?" "Brother Wang Lin and I are very close friends. He'll need my help after he joins the sect." "He just asked you for your help. Could you arrange it for me?" Chengxian took a deep breath, smiling as he spoke to Luo Yue. "You're the Sir HMPH." Luo Yue glared at Chengxian, dissatisfied. After saying that, she glared fiercely at the disappearing Wang Lin, muttering a few words under her breath before gently shaking the bell on her wrist. A celestial crane flew down and landed beside her. The woman jumped onto the crane and flew away. Chengxian's face was filled with anguish, and she sighed deeply. But at this moment, a melodious voice like a silver bell, belonging to Luo Yue, echoed through the air. "Follow me quickly." "This is the only time. There won't be a next time." Chengxian was overjoyed and hurriedly stood up to follow the crane, heading towards the East Garden. Meanwhile, Wang Lin returned to the North Garden after leaving. Nothing happened upon entering the courtyard. The restrictions he had set up before leaving showed no signs of being activated. Upon returning to his courtyard, Wang Lin took out the alchemy furnace that Li Muwen had given him, placed it in his room, and continued to refine pills and cultivate. He knew his time was running out and needed to quickly improve his cultivation. He didn't want Li Muwen to recognize him. After all, too much time had passed, and Wang Lin couldn't be sure how much of their past affection remained. Before reaching the nascent soul stage, Wang Lin didn't intend to reveal his identity. Otherwise, if something went wrong, the identity he had painstakingly acquired at the Cloud Heaven sect could be destroyed in an instant. That's why Wang Lin didn't acknowledge any acquaintances. Moreover, he felt that in the past 2 years, things had changed, and there was really no need to relive the past. It was best to let things take their natural course. As for Li Muan knowing that his previous name was Ma Liang, this could be easily explained. After all, after 2 years, it wouldn't be difficult to find out someone's name if one paid attention. Of course, it would be strange if Li Muan knew his name was Wang Lin. Wang Lin had a complex feeling towards Li Muan. In fact, since he embarked on the path of cultivation, although he had met many female cultivators, Li Muan was the only one who had been with him for several years. In truth, Wang Lin had once been moved by this woman, but this feeling had barely surfaced before he forcefully dismissed it. Now, upon meeting an old acquaintance again, Wang Lin's heart was filled with complex emotions. After a long period of silence in his room, Wang Lin sighed softly, dispelling all distracting thoughts and focusing on cultivation. Time passed slowly, and several months went by in the blink of an eye. Chulin had been in seclusion for months. During these months, Wang Lin focused on alchemy, thus making some progress. However, his talent for alchemy was truly limited. He had to use the alchemy furnace given to him by Li Muan more than 93 times before successfully mastering the control of the fire. Therefore, he began to rely on some of the formulas recorded in the jade slip to start refining elixirs. More than half of the formulas in Chulin's jade slip were for semi-grade spiritual elixirs. Wang Lin had tried all the spiritual herbs in the courtyard. However, the failure rate when refining pills was very high. He only succeeded once in 10 attempts. Sometimes, he didn't even succeed once. If things continued like this, even though the medicinal herbs in the academy were abundant, they wouldn't be enough for him. Finally, because he ran out of herbs, Wang Lin pondered and decided to use the spiritual liquid as a substitute. But what surprised him was that he was able to successfully refine pills. Moreover, it wasn't just a one-time success. As long as he added the spiritual liquid to the pill refining process, the success rate increased incredibly. Almost 9 out of 10 times, he succeeded. After experimenting, Wang Lin determined that this spiritual liquid significantly increased the success rate of pill refining. Since then, with the spiritual liquid and the heaven-defying pearl, his cultivation has continuously increased, reaching the 15th level of the Cha condensation stage. Just one step away from foundation establishment. Wang Lin still remembered that his original body had failed countless times in his attempts to achieve foundation establishment. Finally, Sichunan said there were only 3 methods. One was to obtain the foundation establishment pill. 2 was to use demonic techniques to seize the foundation. And 3 was to have a nascent soul cultivator personally perform the ritual to assist. Foundation establishment pills were extremely rare, and nascent soul cultivators were incapable of helping him. Therefore, Wang Lin ultimately chose to use demonic techniques to seize the foundation. For some unknown reason, the target of the foundation seizing ended up being Teng Li, the nephew of Teng Hui Yuan. Now, his clone had once again reached this stage. However, this time he didn't need to use foundation establishment pills, nor did he need the help of a nascent soul cultivator, because he had already mastered the art of alchemy. However, the foundation establishment pill wasn't easy to obtain. Originally, this pill was a gift from his master to his disciple, but Chulin was currently in seclusion. She could never have imagined that Wang Lin, in less than half a year, would have progressed from the 13th level of the Cha condensation stage to the Great Perfection stage. One day, Wang Lin sat silently in the courtyard, his right hand gently flicking, producing the jade slip containing the message Chengshan had given him that day. Chengshan had visited several times in the past few months, each time speaking with Wang Lin. According to Chengshan, Luo Yue had secretly led him there, and he had finally met senior sister Tong and even spent some quality time with her. Wang Lin's divine consciousness sank, leaving the message in the jade slip. Then he tossed it away. The jade slip flew off. Wang Lin wasn't impatient. He quietly sat cross-legged in the courtyard, waiting for Chengshan. Not long after, A few animal roars echoed from afar, followed by a spirit ape flying swiftly towards them, directly leaping into the courtyard. Cheng Xian, seated on the ape's back, saw Wang Lin and immediately smiled, saying, "Brother, what do you want?" Wang Lin looked up and slowly said, "Do you have the formula for the Foundation Establishment Pill?" Cheng Xian was taken aback and said, "The Foundation Establishment Pill is a first-grade spirit pill. I can't refine it, so I don't have the formula either." Wang Lin frowned, sighed inwardly, and thought he would have to go find Li Muon. "However, since you've asked, how can I not help? Although I don't have it, my master certainly does. Wait for me 3 days. Within 3 days, I will definitely steal it." Cheng Xian smiled proudly and chatted with Wang Lin for a while longer. Afterwards, he looked up at the sky and said, "Senior Sister Tong has arranged a meeting with me today. Brother, let's not talk anymore. I'm leaving. Leave the Foundation Establishment Pill recipe to me," he said excitedly, then sat on the reluctant spirit ape and hurried away. It didn't take 3 days as Cheng Xian had said. By midday on the second day, Cheng Xian hadn't arrived, but a slightly larger spirit ape did. It roared a few times outside the courtyard, then threw a jade slip inside before turning and leaving. When Wang Lin came out, only the spirit ape's silhouette remained. Suddenly, Wang Lin's eyes widened. He stared at the spirit ape's figure, noticing something was amiss. The spirit ape's leg was clearly injured. It walked awkwardly, as if afraid to exert itself. Wang Lin lowered his head, picked up the jade slip, pondered for a moment, then turned and returned to the courtyard. For the next 10 days, Wang Lin focused almost all his attention on refining the pill. The Foundation Establishment Pill was a first-grade elixir. The failure rate was extremely high. But thanks to the addition of the spiritual liquid, the success rate increased considerably. However, it was still not as good as refining the Great Nourishing Essence Pill. After adding the spiritual liquid, the Nourishing Essence Pill succeeded 9 out of 10 times. The Foundation Establishment Pill, on the other hand, only succeeded 5 or 6 times out of 10. Wang Lin pondered for a moment. He analyzed that the spiritual liquid's effect on increasing the success rate of pill refining was obviously less significant the higher the quality of the pill. The heaven-defying pearl itself doesn't yet possess all 5 elements. Over the past few hundred years, Wang Lin has been searching for the missing elements. However, these elements are incredibly difficult to find. It's worth noting that to achieve the perfect fire attribute, he had to absorb a type of wild beast. Therefore, the 3 missing attributes metal, wood, and earth are extremely difficult to obtain. At least until now, Wang Lin hasn't discovered any effective methods. It seems only the water attribute is the easiest to acquire. Besides that, he has also achieved a wood attribute. Although not yet perfect, 7 leaves have appeared on the heaven-defying pearl. Furthermore, the metal and earth attributes show no signs of activity. Wang Lin has tried several methods, but ultimately none have worked. Wang Lin had a deep understanding of the spiritual liquid produced by this heaven-defying pearl. The quality of the spiritual liquid before the pearl reached its peak differed significantly from that after it reached its peak. Moreover, after the fire attribute reached its peak, the quality of this spiritual liquid doubled, making the difference even more apparent. If things continued like this, as long as all 5 elements were present, not only would the pearl undergo some kind of transformation, but the spiritual liquid alone would significantly increase the success rate of high-grade elixirs. This Foundation Establishment Pill could only produce 2 pills per furnace. Furthermore, the refining process took a day. 10 days later, after almost all the medicinal herbs for refining the Foundation Establishment Pills had been gathered, Wang Lin finally refined 13 Foundation Establishment Pills. This clone of Wang Lin, apart from having similar talent to his main body, was otherwise ordinary and lacked any special qualities. Therefore, even with only 1 Foundation Establishment Pill, Wang Lin wouldn't dare guarantee success. That's why he prepared so much. If it fails, he'll just keep using it. Having prepared everything, Wang Lin took a deep breath, touched his forehead with his right hand, and entered the heaven-defying space. Shortly after he entered, a worried spirit ape approached the courtyard. Its entire body was covered in fresh blood, and it roared several times before quickly leaving in disappointment. Before entering the heaven-defying space, he had made some arrangements in the courtyard to prevent others from disturbing him. Therefore, when he entered the heaven-defying space, his body would completely disappear, and even if someone came to investigate, they wouldn't be detected. After all, even the 8 Extremes Demon Lord Duan Muji, who had reached the God transformation stage, couldn't detect the existence of the heaven-defying space. The late-stage nascent soul Old Man of the Cloud Heaven sect wouldn't be able to sense anything unusual. In the heaven-defying space, after paying respects to the souls of his parents, Sichu Nan, Wang Lin calmly sat down and meditated for a while. Then he took out a white jade bottle, poured out a foundation establishment pill with a refreshing medicinal aroma, and put it in his mouth. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, it transformed into waves of spiritual power, circulating within his body. Wang Lin calmly and silently cultivated the ancient divine art. Under his control, the ancient divine art absorbed the spiritual power, not transforming it into his physical body, but instead concentrating it in his abdomen, forming a flow. Finally, when the spiritual power from the foundation establishment pill was completely absorbed by this flow, the flow suddenly grew larger, surging upwards. At this point, Wang Lin was no longer a novice on the path of cultivation. He knew that if this flow could circulate throughout his entire body, it meant he had successfully achieved foundation establishment. If his body possessed abundant spiritual roots, this flow would naturally be able to do so. But if the innate talent is insufficient, then there will be invisible impurities hindering this flow throughout the body, causing great difficulty. The flow within his body spun faster and faster, instantly spreading throughout his entire being, like a giant tree growing wildly, using Wang Lin's body as soil, rapidly extending its branches in all directions. However, there were too many impurities in his body. This flow was like hitting a hidden rock. Although he had eliminated many impurities, it eventually slowed down, not only ceasing to spread, but also gradually showing signs of retreating. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Without saying a word, he continued to eat another foundation establishment pill. Instantly, the retreating flow was infused with boundless power, once again launching a powerful offensive. Time slowly passed. Wang Lin was still in the process of foundation establishment. He didn't know how many days had passed. He had already eaten 8 foundation establishment pills. The energy flow within his body surged, finally circulating throughout his entire being. Every part of his body radiated a burst of light. At the same time, a small amount of black liquid slowly seeped out from his pores. After a while, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze like lightning. After a quick internal examination, he immediately discovered that the meridians in his body had become almost transparent and sparkling. Moreover, they were dozens of times larger than before. Such a transformation, even his original self from back then, when he seized the foundation, couldn't achieve. Wang Lin was silent for a moment. He didn't know if all of this was related to his cultivation of the ancient God technique. After all, the ancient God technique was a cultivation method that devoured spiritual power, relying entirely on the quantity of spiritual power for cultivation. And the foundation establishment pill was, in fact, an extremely powerful foundation cultivation pill. It's just that the effects of the medicinal ingredients were countless times greater than those of the foundation cultivation pill. Based on that, a powerful spiritual energy is released, cleansing the entire body and transforming it to be perfectly suitable for cultivation. That is the effect of the foundation establishment pill. However, this is an internal change, while the ancient God technique helps to reorganize the body, which is an external change. In fact, the two are not much different. It's just that the external transformation caused by the ancient God technique allows the owner to absorb spiritual energy better, thus becoming stronger. Cultivators transform their internal bodies to more easily harmonize with heaven and earth, to sense the spiritual energy within, and also to become stronger. The two methods of internal and external cultivation are different but yield the same result. Wang Lin's main body repeatedly prevented his body from absorbing spiritual energy, concentrating it in his golden core. But in reality, after his body was reorganized once, a purple star appeared on his forehead, and he had already embarked on the path of the ancient god body refining. In other words, he was unaware that he had entered the path of external cultivation. His clone, however, because of its healthy physical body, did not undergo physical reconstruction. Moreover, Wang Lin had noticed this from the beginning. Since then, this clone has cultivated along the path of internal cultivation. Wang Lin picked up the white jade bottle. 5 foundation establishment pills remained inside. He pondered for a moment, then immediately put them all into his mouth and sat down to meditate. Time slowly passed, and the spiritual power contained within the 5 foundation establishment pills erupted violently. If it were someone else, their body would certainly not be able to withstand the impact of the spiritual power, even if they didn't die. The chaotic spiritual power in their body would escape and disappear. But Wang Lin cultivated the ancient god's decree, an extremely powerful ancient cultivation method. This method was not afraid of spiritual power. Even if there was more, it wouldn't matter. The spiritual power transformed from the foundation establishment pills under the devouring power of the ancient god's decree did not cause any harm to his body and was immediately absorbed completely. Wang Lin's cultivation level had also leapt from just reaching the foundation establishment stage to the peak of foundation establishment. However, Wang Lin still felt it wasn't enough. He pondered for a moment and then took out a pill furnace from his storage bag. This pill furnace looked extremely ordinary, but there was a golden seal on the rim of the furnace. This pill furnace was the one Wang Lin had obtained from Yun Fei that day. Yun Fei had been very mysterious about this pill furnace back then, and Wang Lin also found it a bit strange. When Wang Lin first obtained this pill furnace, he couldn't put it into his storage bag, but after successfully condensing his clone, he tried to store it, and for some reason, it was completely easy. This pill furnace had so many strange things about it that Wang Lin felt puzzled. After putting the item away, Wang Lin stood up and left the heaven-defying space. As soon as he entered the courtyard, Wang Lin sensed something unusual. The air was thick with a faint smell of blood. Wang Lin glanced around, finally noticing the source of the fresh blood scent coming from the door. His eyes remained calm as he slowly walked towards it. There, he discovered the corpse of a spirit ape. Its eyes were wide open, but the depths of its gaze were dull. Its entire body was covered in sword wounds, and a large, bull-sized wound emanated from its belly. The wound was no longer bleeding, only the stench of blood lingered. Wang Lin knelt down and examined the ape's right thigh, immediately noticing several fractures. Clearly, this was the same spirit ape that had delivered Cheng Xian's jade slip to him a few days earlier. Wang Lin's gaze then fell on the wound on the ape's belly. It was obviously torn open by hand, likely to extract its inner core. Wang Lin had encountered similar situations many times before. He recognized it at a glance, and a little analysis was enough to understand clearly. However, he didn't know if something had actually happened to Cheng Xian. Given Cheng Xian's enthusiastic nature over the past 6 months, his deep affection for this spirit ape, and the fact that Cheng Xian hadn't personally delivered the jade slip, Wang Lin could clearly guess what had happened. Leaving aside other matters, the mere fact that he had given Wang Lin the foundation establishment pill formula meant something had happened to him, and Wang Lin couldn't stand idly by. Wang Lin sighed inwardly, not even glancing at the spirit ape's corpse again, and turned to enter the room. Inside, Wang Lin suddenly raised his hands. At this moment, he didn't need to drink the spirit liquid to complete a forbidden spell. The afterimage of the spell fell to the ground, instantly transforming into a ripple. A cold, silver-haired man slowly emerged from within. As soon as he appeared, The surroundings were instantly filled with a chilling aura. The main body of the original being slowly emerged from the afterimage of the Forbidden's formation, emitting an extremely dense chill. Even the entire room, made of spirit jade, was instantly covered in a layer of cold frost. After the main body appeared, Wang Lin's clone took a deep breath, stepped forward, as if merging with the main body. Immediately afterward, the eyes of Wang Lin's main body flashed with cold light, filled with overwhelming killing intent. He moved his lips. Although he had been living peacefully in the Chu Kingdom for a long time, his killing intent hadn't diminished at all. It only surfaced when he was angry, otherwise it remained completely hidden. Wang Lin pondered for a moment. His body flicked, a mask appeared on his face, and his clothes transformed into those of his clone. Immediately afterward, his body moved, swiftly leaving the room. At this moment, he immediately felt his cultivation level increase slightly. It's worth noting that previously, when he had reached the late stage of the Golden Core, also known as the false nascent soul realm, his cultivation, which had previously been incapable of further advancement, was now progressing. Although he hadn't yet reached the point of shattering his Golden Core into a nascent soul, he discovered a faint purple hue within his Golden Core. Wang Lin knew that, just before forming his nascent soul, a deathly aura would appear within his Golden Core. This deathly aura was called the primordial nascent soul. It was the crucial substance that propelled the Golden Core to shatter into a nascent soul. When the entire Golden Core was enveloped in deathly aura, the day of forming his nascent soul would arrive. In the past, no matter how many times Wang Lin tried, the primordial nascent soul never appeared. Even after devouring that nascent soul, the deathly aura didn't have time to appear. Instead, it was dispersed by his supreme realm divine consciousness just as it was about to emerge. But now this death energy has appeared, yet it hasn't been attacked by the extreme realm. This indicates that Wang Lin's method is absolutely feasible. As long as he perseveres, allowing his clone to reach the nascent soul stage and then merge with his main body, he can allow his main body to break through the Golden Core stage and reach the nascent soul stage, becoming invincible second only to the transformation god stage. Moreover, he possesses all sorts of divine abilities, the power of ancient gods, the might of magical artifacts, and even dares to fight a transformation god stage cultivator. For example, he now dares to fight a nascent soul stage cultivator without fear. Wang Lin took a deep breath. His body didn't stop moving, but like a ghost, he flew to the side of the spirit ape's body. He was about to deal with the corpse when his gaze suddenly stopped, glancing at the corpse once more, muttering, "As expected of a low-grade spirit beast, even with my clone's cultivation level, I couldn't discern that this beast possessed a soul body." Wang Lin flicked his right hand, placing it above the beast's head. His face remained icy cold, and he calmly said, "Since we've met, I'll save you once. From now on, you are my third demon." A black light flashed from Wang Lin's right hand, landing on the beast's head and instantly emerging. Within the black light was the soul of the spirit ape, its eyes filled with a hazy mist. The moment this soul appeared, a chilling aura emanated from it, causing the surrounding medicinal fragrance to vanish. Even some of the surrounding flowers and plants trembled violently, eventually withering. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he slowly said, "I didn't expect a soul with such innate malevolent energy." "Very well. It seems you suffered immensely before you died." This suffering wasn't just physical, but also spiritual. Wang Lin sensed this aura. This wasn't the first time he'd encountered it. In fact, 400 years ago in Zhou Kingdom, he'd encountered a similar malevolent aura. The one who emitted that aura back then was him, Wang Lin. Now, witnessing this spirit ape's soul emitting an aura similar to his own, Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He flicked his right hand, quickly seizing the soul, while simultaneously raising his left hand to conjure a soul banner, drawing the soul into it. After placing several restrictions around it, Wang Lin didn't bother with it anymore, letting it fend for itself. Inside the soul banner were several powerful souls, all collected by Wang Lin over the years, prepared for refining into a demon. If this spirit ape wasn't ultimately devoured but instead managed to devour other souls, then this beast would have the qualifications to become the third demon. If it failed, it would only suffer the fate of having its soul and spirit scattered. After subduing the beast, Wang Lin's expression remained calm. His body flew out of the courtyard, heading towards the south garden. Just as Wang Lin's true form emerged from the afterimage of the Forbidden's formation in the third pavilion far from the south garden, Li Muan's forehead suddenly trembled. Although she was refining a crucial medicinal pill, her body suddenly shook, and she threw down the medicinal materials in her hand, ignoring the alchemy furnace, and without a word, rushed out of the room. A batch of fourth-grade spiritual pills was nothing compared to that person's figure in her eyes. The momentary tremor in her forehead was at the source of the soul blood. A trace of that person's consciousness lingered, vaguely revealing a thought like 100 rivers rushing to the sea. It seemed as if a massive magnet was attracting the consciousness in her forehead, causing it to tremble wildly, wanting to escape from her body and fly away. She had never encountered such a phenomenon in 200 years, but at this moment, a sense of anticipation filled her heart. Could the person she had been waiting for 200 years be not far away? Li Muan took a deep breath and quickly flew out of the building, intending to leave the courtyard. But at that moment, a pleasant voice came from the garden. "Sister, where are you going?" A cold glint flashed in Li Muan's eyes, and she still rushed forward. However, a white figure quickly blocked her path. This white figure was a middle-aged man. He looked at Li Muan, his gentle demeanor mixed with surprise, and said, "Sister, you haven't answered me yet. Where are you going?" You're in such a hurry. I rarely see that." The cold glint in Li Muan's eyes intensified more than ever before. She stared intently at the other party, trying to suppress the increasingly intense fluctuations of her spiritual consciousness in her forehead, her words as cold as winter frost. "Sun Jianwei, do you really think that with your late-stage core formation cultivation you can stop me? If not, get out of the way. Don't blame this junior sister for being disrespectful." The middle-aged man smiled gently and said, "Junior sister, this is the Cloud Heaven sect. How could I stop you?" "I don't know where you're going, junior sister. I want to take you there." At the same time, Wang Lin had arrived at the south courtyard. Looking at the white mist covering the south courtyard, his expression remained unchanged. In the Cloud Heaven sect, nascent soul stage cultivators were mainly concentrated in the outer courtyard. There were still some in the inner courtyard, but they almost entirely devoted their energy to alchemy, rarely engaging in combat with others, always spending long periods in seclusion practicing alchemy. For example, in this south courtyard, there was also a nascent soul stage cultivator. This person is currently in a secret chamber beneath the southern garden, closest to the earth fire, using their own spiritual fire to refine a batch of elixirs to enhance their cultivation. Halfway to the southern garden, Wang Lin concealed his aura, acting like a ghost, so he wasn't detected. He was now standing outside the southern garden, observing the swirling white mist. Without hesitation, he stepped inside. Cheng Shan had told Wang Lin where he lived. The white mist in the southern garden offered no obstruction to Wang Lin's gaze. His divine consciousness swept across, revealing the entire garden. Near the center, Wang Lin's divine consciousness unexpectedly detected a fluctuating nascent soul aura beneath the ground. Based on Wang Lin's experience, this aura belonged to an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. Wang Lin's divine consciousness swept over the area in an instant, and the person also sensed Wang Lin's presence. The monk was startled and was about to leave his secluded retreat, but his body suddenly stopped. Looking at the alchemy cauldron emitting a refreshing medicinal fragrance, he couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. As for Wang Lin, he didn't say a word. He noticed a nascent soul cultivator here, and moreover, his cultivation was only at the early stage. He immediately flicked his sleeve, and a small black banner flew out. In an instant, the banner soared into the strong wind, encircling the nascent soul cultivator who was in seclusion. A cold smile appeared on Wang Lin's lips. If the opponent's cultivation had been at the mid-stage nascent soul, he wouldn't hesitate to abandon helping Qingshan and immediately retreat to the North Garden. But now the opponent was only at the early stage, and Wang Lin felt no fear. Although the Forbidden's banner's power would be greatly reduced without his presence, it was perfectly capable of trapping an early-stage nascent soul cultivator for a moment. That moment was enough for Wang Lin to accomplish everything. Ignoring the nascent soul cultivator, Wang Lin calmly walked into the white mist. His actions in releasing the Forbidden's banner that was besieging the nascent soul cultivator went undetected. Wang Lin leisurely walked through the mist and quickly arrived at Qingshan's residence. His divine sense swept across the room, discovering that Qingshan was there, though his condition was somewhat critical. Qingshan lay on the bed in his room, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, tears streaming down his face. The spiritual power in his body was extremely chaotic, circulating erratically. Beside him was a stout middle-aged man. The man frowned, his right hand covering Qingshan's mouth, forcing a pill into his throat while scolding him. "This foolish disciple, I told you long ago, beautiful women are a source of trouble. You never listened, humph, especially that Tong girl. Her schemes are even more vicious. How could someone like you possibly conquer her? Now look what happened. From now on, stop thinking about her all day long. Focus on following your master's alchemy practice. That's the right path." Qingshan turned a blind eye. The elixir entered his body, helping his spiritual power gradually stabilize. His master sighed and said, "I know you're unwilling, but do you still want to be stubborn? If it weren't for my respect for this old man, your life would have been over. You dared to barge into the Eastern Garden. You shouldn't blame me for restricting your body now. The Eastern Garden said that if you come and do something foolish again, they will cripple your cultivation." The chubby middle-aged man shook his head and turned to leave the room. Wang Lin stood outside the courtyard, his divine sense observing everything, and he pondered for a moment. His body shot forward, entering the courtyard. Qingshan's master didn't notice anything at all. Wang Lin had already entered Qingshan's room. He looked at Qingshan and with a wave of his right hand, instantly broke the restriction that was limiting Qingshan's movements. Qingshan's body trembled, and he immediately sat up, staring at Wang Lin with hatred in his eyes, gritting his teeth and saying, "You were sent by that despicable woman to kill me, weren't you? Go ahead, I'm not afraid." Wang Lin was wearing a mask, and his aura and cultivation were completely different from before, so Qingshan couldn't recognize him. Wang Lin glanced at Qingshan, and with a wave of his left hand, a restriction appeared before him, instantly expanding to cover the entire room. Qingshan's eyes widened in surprise. Then he let out a mournful laugh, saying, "That despicable woman is truly cunning, even managing to invite a senior from outside to deal with a nobody like me. Come on, kill me if you want. If I even frown, I'm not Qingshan." After setting up a protective barrier around them, Wang Lin's tone was icy cold as he slowly said, "I was indeed sent here, but not to kill you, but to help you. Tell me what exactly happened, tell me the details." Qingshan was stunned, looking at Wang Lin before hesitantly saying, "Senior." "Who sent you?" Wang Lin raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "I'll give you 3 sentences. That was the first. If you still haven't explained clearly after 2 more sentences, then this matter is over." Qingshan gritted his teeth, a resolute expression appearing on his face, and said, "Gonsun Tong is in the East Garden. It's her. She's the one who harmed me. That despicable woman, her contact with me was for a purpose, to get the large and small spirit beasts." Wang Lin pondered for a moment and said, "Are these spirit beasts yours?" Wang Lin's question was very clever. It's important to know that there are many spirit beasts in the Cloud Heaven sect. The purpose of spirit beasts is for alchemists. If so, then what Gonsun Tong did wasn't too outrageous. A look of regret appeared on Qingshan's face as he excitedly said, "But I thought she wanted to use the spirit ape as a mount." I never imagined she would be interested in its inner core. The first ape disappeared after its inner core was taken. It must be dead. Now only the second one remains. I've gone to the East Garden many times to reason with that despicable woman, but I've always been stopped. And there's also Lu Song, a disciple of Master Mu, who has injured me many times. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't want to get involved in this matter, but Changshan had helped him obtain the Foundation Establishment pill formula. Both in terms of sentiment and reason, he had to help. After a moment of silence, Wang Lin looked at Changshan and calmly said, "How do you want revenge?" Changshan's eyes turned red, and he gritted his teeth, saying, "If the second one is all right, then it's over. But if I, Changshan, find out the spirit ape is dead, then I want them buried with it, W." And Lin nodded, his tone gentle, "As you wish." After speaking, his body recoiled, instantly leaving the room and disappearing without a trace. Changshan stared blankly at where Wang Lin had been standing, his eyes filled with bewilderment. Meanwhile, Wang Lin sped out of Changshan's room. But just as he left the South Garden, he suddenly stopped, turning his head to look into the distance. There, he sensed a fluctuation of divine consciousness. After a moment of silence, Wang Lin turned back, raising his right hand. His body instantly transformed into white mist, vanishing in an instant. As soon as he disappeared, Li Muwen's figure flashed forward like lightning. Behind her was the middle-aged man with the gentle expression. "Sister, what exactly are you looking for?" The man frowned, speaking slowly. Li Muwen stopped. Through her divine consciousness at her forehead, she could sense that the man was there. But why couldn't she see him? Li Muwen smiled wryly. She was more intelligent than him, and at this moment understood that the other party obviously didn't want to see her. Li Muwen bit her lip, her face filled with sadness, and softly said, "I know you've come. Why won't you even meet me once?" The middle-aged man's expression changed. He swept his consciousness around but found nothing unusual. He frowned suspiciously, looking at Li Muwen, and said, "Sister, who has come?" "There's no one here." Li Muwen didn't even glance at him, closing her eyes. A sorrowful expression appeared on her face, and her voice was low but clear as she softly said, "Water desires nothing else but to see you. For the past 200 years, Water has relied entirely on the spiritual elixir you gave her at the beginning to sustain her life. If you don't show up today, Water will commit suicide immediately." Consider at the end of a deep obsession in Water's heart, the middle-aged man's eyes flickered as he cautiously surveyed his surroundings. At that moment, a sigh drifted from within the white mist. Immediately afterward, a blurry figure slowly emerged from the fog. This person was Wang Lin. His appearance caused the middle-aged man's face to darken considerably. However, he dared not act rashly, his right hand slowly reaching into his storage bag. Li Muwen stared at Wang Lin in astonishment, tears streaming down her face. Even though he wore a mask, she was certain the person before her was him. Li Muwen softly said, "You've come." Wang Lin gave a bitter smile and said, "Why do you have to suffer so much?" Then his gaze turned coldly toward the middle-aged man, his tone calm. "The moment you touch the storage bag is the moment you lose your life." The middle-aged man froze instantly. His expression changed again. He found the other man extremely strange. Although he only possessed late-stage core formation cultivation, he gave off an oppressive feeling as if he were facing a nascent soul cultivator. He had no doubt that if he were to touch the storage bag, he would undoubtedly be killed. Sweat poured down his forehead like rain, and he forced a smile, saying, "Brother, since you are an old friend of Junior Sister Li, you are also a friend of our Cloud Heaven sect. How dare I act rashly? You've misunderstood." Li Muwen looked at Wang Lin, her heart filled with countless unspoken words, yet not a single one escaped her lips. She remained silent for a moment, then softly said, "That jade slip, do you still have it?" Wang Lin looked at the beautiful woman before him, remained silent, then shook his head, saying, "I threw it away." Li Muwen's body trembled, her eyes filled with sorrow. She forcefully composed herself, her lips moving slightly as she softly said, "If it's thrown away, then so be it." It wasn't worth much anyway. Though she said this, her heart ached terribly. This pain was like a tidal wave, overwhelming her heart. That jade dragon slip was something she had painstakingly carved years ago, even sacrificing her lifespan. If it weren't for that excessive drain on her energy with the elixirs she'd used in recent years, even if she hadn't reached the nascent soul stage, she would have at least reached the pseudo-nascent soul stage. Why was she still stuck at the early core formation stage? Hearing that the jade slip had been carelessly thrown away, she felt immense pain, but she tried to remain calm. However, her body trembled uncontrollably, and her beautiful face turned pale, devoid of any color. Wang Lin turned away, not looking at Li Muan, remaining silent for a moment before softly saying, "I'm leaving." After saying this, he slowly took a few steps forward. Li Muan's heart ached terribly. She looked at Wang Lin's retreating back and smiled faintly. That smile, however, was clearly a silent cry. The founder of the Cloud Heaven sect wants me to become a dual cultivation partner with this person. I refused before, but now. What reason do I have? If you are still in Chu Kingdom 3 months from now, I hope you will come to participate. Wang Lin's legs trembled, and complex emotions welled up in his heart. He remained silent. Li Muan's eyes shone brightly. She was waiting for a convincing answer. The middle-aged man now understood why Li Muan was so resolute about dual cultivation. It turned out to be because of this person. His eyes were calm, but a hint of killing intent flickered. Wang Lin pondered for a long time. He still had his back turned and said in a low voice, "Congratulations." After saying that, his figure gradually disappeared into the distance. Li Muan's body trembled, and after a while, tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She whispered, "I hate you. I hate you." The middle-aged man finally breathed a sigh of relief, approaching her and speaking softly, "Sister, he's gone." Li Muan bit her lower lip, ignoring the middle-aged man completely, and turned to leave. The middle-aged man's expression remained gentle, but inwardly he sneered, thinking, "You slut, to obtain your more than 200 years of primordial yin. I had to urge the ancestor to agree to dual cultivation with you. Once I obtain your primordial yin, coupled with the elixirs I've collected over the years, breaking through to the golden core stage will be within my grasp. If you had agreed to marry me at the beginning, I might have respected you a little. But now, wait until I reach the nascent soul stage, and I will use every means to humiliate you to avenge your repeated rejections." Wang Lin left the South Garden. Even though he was a heartless person, facing Li Muan, he felt deeply guilty. It wasn't that he couldn't accept her, but he still had things to do, paths to travel, and it really wasn't appropriate to bring a woman along. In truth, Wang Lin wasn't as indifferent to Li Muan as he claimed. He didn't know how long it would take him to become a brother, and accepting Li Muan at this time would lead to a series of complications. The consequences would likely be severe, and Li Muan would certainly be implicated. This was not something Wang Lin wanted to see. He sighed, his heart churning, unable to calm down for a long time. With a complex mix of emotions, Wang Lin left the South Garden. He secretly calculated that he needed to finish everything within the remaining half hour, seizing the opportunity. His figure moved swiftly, like lightning, flying quickly to the East Garden. Upon arriving, Wang Lin didn't immediately enter but circled around, continuously casting several protective spells. Then, without stopping, he accelerated. His powerful divine sense prevented the patrolling disciples of the East Garden from detecting him. However, as soon as Wang Lin entered the Eastern Garden, all the immortal beings trembled in an instant, descending from the air. No matter how much the female cultivators riding them whipped their whips, they dared not fly up again. Wang Lin's figure moved with incredible speed, transforming into a thin thread and entering the Eastern Garden. Passing through layers of mist, the entire beauty of the Eastern Garden unfolded before Wang Lin's eyes. From the outside, it already resembled a celestial realm, but upon entering, this feeling intensified. The exquisite beauty of the pavilions and terraces was beyond imagination from the hazy view. A seven-colored rainbow emerged from the depths of the eastern garden, cutting across the sky. Female cultivators, like fairies, soared through the air. Unfortunately, the immortal cranes were trembling, not daring to stand. Therefore, the beauty of this place was slightly incomplete. Following the path described by Chengxian, Wang Lin moved swiftly, arriving unnoticed at the western end of the eastern garden. Within this jade pavilion complex, he found Gongsun boudoir. His divine consciousness swept over it, and Wang Lin was instantly stunned. He witnessed a rather bizarre scene. With a slight frown, his body flashed and he slipped into the room. He saw a screen in the room, through which two women were bathing. Looking through the screen, he saw two women with well-proportioned figures, currently caressing each other's bodies. They slowly embraced and intertwined. At the same time, heavy breathing could be heard. Under Wang Lin's divine consciousness, he clearly saw every detail of this lesbian scene. Suddenly, one woman, gasping for breath, said in a trembling voice, "Sister Tong, it's Chengxian." She had only spoken half of her sentence when the other woman caressed her lower body, seemingly touching a sensitive spot. 1. Lesbian. After a long while, a soft voice of a woman came from behind the screen. "Linger, you still miss that Chengxian. That's right, I deceived him. But wasn't it because of you? The elixir you refined is missing an inner elixir. I merely tricked that spirit beast out of it. But what about Lu Song? That girl called Linger is Qingling. No need any more. Trust me, tomorrow after Lu Song arrives, I will make arrangements for him. I guarantee there will be no problems. At most, Lu Song will only give him a little benefit and that's it. Come here. Your sister has served you so well just now. Now it's your turn." Wang Lin didn't go in, but pointed his right hand at his forehead. Suddenly, Silly Guo flew out from within. He stared at the screen, his eyes showing excitement. "I don't care how you do it. Ask where the spirit garden is, take their souls, and then come see me." After saying this, Wang Lin turned and left the room. Silly Guo had never been so excited. For the first time, he felt that following Wang Lin was truly the right decision. Even though he was no longer flesh and blood and had become a demon, he still felt something. Silly Guo chuckled without saying another word and suddenly slipped behind the screen. Not long after, he emerged with a satisfied expression, spitting two souls into Wang Lin's forehead. That spirit beast is dead. At the same time, he transmitted a divine thought. Wang Lin flicked his right hand, and a strange soul appeared in his hand, placing the two souls into it. After a moment of contemplation, he turned and went into the room, retrieving the storage bags of the two women before leaving. Just then, a moment had passed. Wang Lin's divine thought stirred, and the Forbidden's banner trapping the nascent soul cultivator in the South Garden instantly shrunk, transforming into a black streak and flying away in an instant. At the same time, an angry roar came from the South Garden. The nascent soul cultivator jumped out, his divine consciousness sweeping around, immediately focusing on the East Garden and flying towards it. Immediately afterward, a powerful divine consciousness also emanated from the East Garden. This divine consciousness revealed anger. After sweeping over Wang Lin, a woman flew out from the center of the Eastern Garden. Wang Lin said nothing, turning and flying away. The woman was completely shrouded in black mist, her features obscured. Upon appearing, her body flashed, chasing after Wang Lin. Wang Lin remained calm. Seeing her getting closer and closer, a cold smile appeared on his lips. He continuously swung his right hand, unleashing a series of restrictions, suddenly descending towards the woman. "Overestimating yourself." The woman sneered, patting her storage bag, and a basket of flowers appeared in her hand. She waved her hand, and countless seven-colored petals flew out. These petals all contained a world-destroying force, quickly filling the sky and flying towards the restrictions. This woman's cultivation level was also at the early nascent soul stage. Wang Lin's gaze remained unchanged, a hint of mockery flashing in his heart. He saw that after the restrictions struck the petals, they instantly split apart, transforming into countless restrictions, scattering wildly in all directions in enormous numbers. Although a few were shattered by the petals, the majority remained floating in the air, then quickly gathered together, forming a single restriction. With extreme speed, it instantly formed a restriction that struck directly at the restriction beneath the East Garden. Wang Lin had previously discovered that the East Garden was supported by a massive restriction. The power of this restriction was immense, and he couldn't break it in a short time. But Wang Lin didn't want to break the restriction. His sole purpose was to unbalance this massive restriction. Ordinary restrictions wouldn't suffice, but Wang Lin used an ancient restriction. Moreover, he had deliberately set up numerous other restrictions beforehand. Now, with coordinated attacks from both inside and outside, he struck the enormous restriction array of the Eastern Garden. A deafening roar echoed from the Eastern Garden. The enormous restriction array immediately lost its balance, and the Eastern Garden, which had been floating in midair, tilted. At the same time, a series of piercing screams rang out, and countless female cultivators flew up, their faces showing surprise and terror. Having accomplished all this, Wang Lin did not stop, but quickly flew away. The pursuing woman gritted her teeth, unable to continue the chase, and hastily retreated to reinforce the enormous restriction array. Wang Lin flew straight away from the Eastern Garden. He knew this wouldn't hold him back for long. Soon, the mid-stage nascent soul cultivators of the Cloud Heaven sect would also arrive to pursue him. Just then, a powerful divine consciousness suddenly came from afar. This divine consciousness swept over Wang Lin, and a cold snort was heard. Wang Lin's eyes remained calm. If it were anyone else, their spiritual consciousness would obviously be damaged. But his spiritual consciousness was extremely vast. After leaving his body, although his cultivation level limited him, preventing him from killing cultivators from the nascent soul stage and above, in terms of power, even a nascent soul cultivator couldn't compare. Now, although due to the limitations of his body, he could only exert his cultivation to the late core formation stage. How could he be injured by the spiritual consciousness of a mid-nascent soul cultivator? His body barely stopped, immediately flying onward. The owner of that spiritual consciousness was stunned, but quickly focused on Wang Lin, and his body swiftly flew from the outer sect. At this moment, a dark shadow flew from afar and landed in Wang Lin's hand. It turned out to be a small flag. This small flag was the very thing that had imprisoned the nascent soul cultivator in the Southern Garden. With the forbidden scroll in his hand, a cold smile flickered in Wang Lin's eyes. His body sank, falling to the ground. He spun around, and a circle of restrictions immediately appeared beneath his feet. Immediately afterward, his figure vanished. No matter how focused the divine sense was, his shadow was nowhere to be seen. At this moment, under the influence of the restrictions, Wang Lin's body returned to his cave dwelling. This cave dwelling was surrounded by restrictions that blocked divine sense. At the same time, Wang Lin's clone in the Northern Garden was in the courtyard. The clone slowly emerged from the ground, then quickly tidied itself up, sat cross-legged in the room, and closed its eyes. This matter was considered settled. Half a month later, rumors about Wang Lin's true form spread from within the Cloud Heaven sect, with various versions and inaccuracies. It should be noted that this was a major event that had not occurred in the Cloud Heaven sect for a long time. Moreover, the fact that the intruder broke into the sect and then vanished into thin air was nothing short of a painful slap in the face to the Yanxia sect. This even alarmed several long-secluded cultivators, including late-stage nascent soul ancestors who were aiming to break through to the transformation god stage. Ultimately, the investigation pointed to two missing women in the East Garden, Cheng Ling and Gongsun Tong. Even those with some connection, like Cheng Xian and Lu Song, were investigated. Even Wang Lin was summoned. Finally, a nascent soul cultivator used his divine sense to check for lies. However, Wang Lin's divine sense far surpassed his, and he couldn't find anything. Unsure what to do, the matter was ultimately dropped. As for Li Miwan, she was completely uninvolved. This was largely thanks to senior brother Che. He was a shrewd and calculating man. He knew that this matter was undoubtedly related to the person Li Miwan had encountered. The opponent's extraordinary abilities secretly terrified him. Even 3 nascent soul cultivators couldn't stop him, allowing him to move freely within the Cloud Heaven sect. If he dared to reveal anything, the opponent could very well sneak into the Cloud Heaven sect and take his life without anyone knowing. Wang Lin's life returned to peace. However, the sad smile of Li Miwan still lingered in his mind. Each time, his heart ached. This feeling intensified after the Cloud Heaven sect suddenly issued a notice throughout the Chu Kingdom announcing that one of the 3 5th-grade alchemists, Li Miwan, would be becoming a Taoist partner with Elder Sun Jianwei of the Outer Sect 2 months later. Wang Lin sat quietly in his room. After a day and a night, he sighed, his eyes showing determination, a cold glint flashing in them. He suddenly stood up, without hesitation, leaving the room and heading towards the South Garden. This journey wasn't smooth either. He was stopped in the white mist, but after announcing his name, someone sent a message to Li Miwan. After a moment, the mist swirled, revealing a passage. Wang Lin slowly stepped forward. His steps, though slow, felt incredibly firm. Upon reaching Li Miwan's courtyard, Li Miwan's calm voice came from within. Your master's seclusion is almost complete. If you have any questions, wait until she comes out. From now on, don't disturb her unless she summons you. Wang Lin was silent for a moment, then slowly raised his head and said, I need a medicinal pill that can increase my cultivation to the nascent soul stage within 2 months. Inside the room, Li Miwan suddenly froze. She jumped up, pushed open the door, and looked at Wang Lin, her voice trembling as she asked, You, who are you? A rare flicker of tenderness appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. However, this tenderness was quickly replaced by composure. He was silent for a moment, then softly said, Do you have this kind of elixir? Li Miwan bit her lip. Her eyes revealed boundless joy. She looked deeply at Wang Lin. At this moment, there was still some calculation of gains and losses in her heart, but very quickly, her eyes changed, revealing a cold glint as she stared at Wang Lin, coquettishly saying, Who exactly are you? Li Miwan immediately remembered that her divine consciousness in her forehead showed no unusual activity. Obviously, the person in front of her was not the person she suspected. All kinds of hatred and sorrow surged uncontrollably in her heart. But she couldn't bring herself to hate this person whose voice and appearance resembled Wang Lin. Wang Lin looked at Li Miwan, sighed, and patted his storage bag with his right hand. Instantly, a jade slip appeared in his hand. He glanced at it briefly and then threw it towards her. As soon as Li Miwan saw the jade slip, her body went limp. After receiving it, she had to lean against the door. Looking at the jade slip, tears of joy streamed down her face. Killing Sun Jianwei is too easy. I just need to wait until my cultivation reaches the nascent soul stage before no one in the Cloud Heaven sect dares to say anything. That'll be enough for me to roam freely in the Chu Kingdom. Wang Lin's voice was calm, but filled with confidence. Li Miwan looked up at Wang Lin in surprise. Her small face flushed. You come in. As she spoke, she leaned away from the door. Wang Lin said nothing, but walked forward. As he passed Li Miwan, a fragrance wafted into his nostrils, permeating his senses. Wang Lin paused, turning to look at Li Miwan. At this moment, the two were standing very close together. From this position, Wang Lin could clearly see Li Miwan's face becoming increasingly red, the redness spreading to her neck. The coldness in Wang Lin's eyes vanished. He reached out and embraced Li Miwan's waist. Li Miwan's body immediately went limp, leaning against Wang Lin's chest. He could clearly feel the pounding of her soft heart. After a long while, Li Miwan parted her lips, pushed Wang Lin away, looked at his face, and softly asked, Why does your appearance look so different from before? Wang Lin released Li Muan, glanced around the room, and then sat down. Li Muan walked over, poured him a cup of green tea, and then quietly looked at Wang Lin, waiting for his answer. Wang Lin smiled and casually said, "Ma Yang was just a body possessed. This body is my true self." Wang Lin is your real name, and this person's cultivation level. Why is it so much lower than it was a few days ago? Li Muan's eyes widened as she asked. Wang Lin nodded, pondered for a moment, then said, "Water, I'll tell you the details when I have time. Right now, I want to ask you, is there a medicinal pill that can allow a foundation establishment cultivator to reach the nascent soul stage in 2 months?" Li Muan's eyes showed a thoughtful expression, and she softly said, "Some ancient texts record an extremely rare medicinal pill that can allow a person's cultivation to reach the nascent soul stage in a short time. However, this pill isn't made from a lost formula, but rather from a main ingredient that has become extinct. Moreover, it's very difficult to find a replacement." Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, but his heart sank. Without this medicinal pill, how could he reach the nascent soul stage in 2 months? This was truly a serious problem. Li Muan's delicate eyebrows furrowed as she sat beside Wang Lin, carefully recalling. Wang Lin didn't disturb her, silently observing the woman. 200 years had passed, yet it seemed as if time had left no trace on her face. This struck Wang Lin as extremely strange. Not only had this woman's appearance not aged, but she had become even more charming and captivating than before. Every gesture and movement exuded an aura that stirred emotions, like a secluded orchid in a deep valley, yet with a hint of extreme arrogance. Li Muan's mind raced through various ancient texts and medicinal formulas. After a long while, her eyes suddenly lit up, and her voice, tinged with joy, coquettishly said, "I was mistaken. If it were a pill that could instantly propel you from foundation establishment to nascent soul, such a pill would be incredibly rare throughout the entire Vermilion Bird Star. It's practically impossible to find, but we can simplify things. In other words, to solve the problem now, we can help you ascend from foundation establishment to golden core. Once you reach golden core, we'll figure out how to form a nascent soul." Wang Lin nodded. Li Muan smiled casually, a hint of confidence in her eyes. She blinked her beautiful big eyes and said, "If it's to reach the core formation stage, I have quite a few of those kinds of elixirs." Brother Wang, have you used any medicinal herbs before?" Wang Lin pondered for a moment, then said, "I haven't used any medicinal herbs on this clone besides the Foundation Establishment Elixir." Foundation Establishment Elixir. Li Muan's eyes widened in surprise. She continued, "If it's the Foundation Establishment Elixir, then it's correct. After all, it's one of the basic elixirs that alchemists must master. But the Foundation Establishment Elixir is a first-grade spiritual elixir. Brother Wang, did you refine this Foundation Establishment Elixir yourself?" After saying this, she looked at Wang Lin with a half-smile, half-serious expression and gently said, "Hey, I remember now. Your master, Jiu Lin, is in seclusion. I am now your Grand Master." Wang Lin's usually thick-skinned face flushed, but the blush quickly disappeared. He quickly coughed, saying, "The Foundation Establishment pill was refined by me. I just added some of the spiritual liquid I gave you before." Li Muan's eyes lit up. She jumped up, urgently asking, "Do you still have that spiritual liquid?" Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, his gaze calm, and he nodded. Li Muan's chest heaved, and she took a deep breath. She said, with a mixture of joy and fear, "Brother Wang, how much of that spiritual liquid do you have left?" "A lot." Wang Lin patted his storage bag with his right hand, and immediately a white jade bottle appeared on the table. Li Muan's eyes showed disappointment, and she murmured, "So there's only one bottle left." It's understandable. Such rare treasures are naturally not something you can have in abundance. But before she could finish her sentence, she saw another bottle appear in Wang Lin's hand. After placing it on the table, another bottle appeared, and so on. Finally, all 8 bottles of spiritual liquid were arranged in a straight line on the table. Li Muan's eyes widened in surprise, her mouth agape. After a moment, she regained her composure, looked at the 8 jade bottles, then at Wang Lin, hesitated for a moment, and softly said, "Brother Wang, are these all spiritual liquids? Are they diluted?" Wang Lin smiled and said, "They're not diluted at all. This is exactly the same as the spiritual liquid I gave you back then. Is that enough? If not, I have more." Li Muan's face flushed. She stared at Wang Lin blankly, exclaiming, "There's still more." Wang Lin nodded and smiled. "As much as you want." Li Muan's breathing quickened. She picked up a jade bottle, opened it carefully, and then looked at Wang Lin with disbelief. After a long pause, she finally said, "Brother Wang, do you know the effects of this spiritual liquid? I've always used it as a substitute for elixirs to enhance my cultivation. Recently, I discovered that it can increase the success rate of alchemy." Wang Lin spoke slowly, without concealing anything. Li Muan was stunned again, immediately giving Wang Lin a strange look. After hearing this, Wang Lin's eyes remained calm as he said, "Oh, so does that mean your refining of the elixirs will give me a greater chance of achieving the nascent soul stage?" Li Muan took a deep breath, her voice full of certainty. "Without this spiritual liquid, I wouldn't be sure of reaching the nascent soul stage within 2 months. It's all about quantity for quality. The ultimate success or failure is unpredictable. But now, with this spiritual liquid, I can be 30% sure of helping you reach the nascent soul stage within 3 months. 30%. Wang Lin raised his eyebrows and immediately nodded. He potted his storage bag, and a pill furnace appeared. This pill furnace looked as light as a feather. "Water, take a look and see if you recognize this." Li Muan glanced at it, her expression changing drastically. She looked incredulous, and after a long while, she took a deep breath, looked directly at Wang Lin, and suddenly said, "Brother Wang, where have you been for the past 200 years? Wang Lin smiled, pointing to the alchemy furnace and saying, "What's wrong? Is this a treasure?" Li Muan nodded heavily. Her face was now filled with excitement. At this moment, her whole body exuded an aura that captivated others. "Brother Wang, this alchemy furnace is of extremely high quality, even comparable to the alchemy cauldron in the main hall of the Cloud Heaven sect. I even suspect that it's even more advanced. Look at these patterns. These aren't naturally formed, but rather medicinal traces left behind after a long period of alchemy. These medicinal traces are what determine the quality of the alchemy furnace. If I'm not mistaken, it must be a supreme treasure of a certain alchemy sect." Li Muan analyzed intently. Wang Lin nodded silently. This analysis was similar to his previous conjecture. However, compared to this alchemy furnace, the golden paper here is considered a more precious item. Look at this seal, brother. Before, Wanner saw it described in some ancient texts. It's called a dawn seal, and besides absorbing spiritual energy from heaven and earth, it also serves to seal and cultivate elixirs. According to ancient texts, dawn seals were rare even in ancient times. The method of creating dawn seals has long been lost. Moreover, what's valuable is that this dawn seal is very well preserved and can be used continuously. You should know that even ordinary elixirs, if sealed with a dawn seal, will more than double in quality after a few days. If left for a long time, the quality of the elixir will increase even more. It's rumored that all kinds of heaven-defying elixirs were created after hundreds of thousands of years of being sealed with dawn seals. It can be said that the dawn seal plays a crucial role, Li Muan said slowly, gazing adoringly at the golden paper on the alchemy furnace. Wang Lin was slightly surprised. He glanced at the seal, not expecting its value to be even more precious than the alchemy furnace itself. So what kind of elixir is contained within this alchemy furnace with its cauldron-shaped cauldron? If so, wouldn't this elixir be even more precious than the cauldron itself? Li Muan took a deep breath, looked at the cauldron, and continued in a pleasant voice, Brother Wang, you probably guessed it already. Compared to the cauldron-shaped cauldron, the elixir inside is the true treasure. It's rumored that only heavenly fine elixirs forged from rare heavenly treasures can be placed in this kind of cauldron with its cauldron-shaped cauldron. I'm extremely curious now. What kind of elixir is this? Wang Lin stared at the alchemy furnace, his thoughts drifting to Yun FBI. Wang Lin patted his storage bag, and the jade slip Yun FBI had left for him appeared in his hand. Wang Lin placed the jade slip on the table and said softly, the jade slip and the cauldron were both created by the same person. See if there's any connection between them. Li Muan's eyes lit up as she took the jade slip. She examined it with her divine consciousness. After a moment, she frowned slightly and lowered her voice, saying, Huangmin, it must be Che Huangmin. Some of the formulas in this jade slip are the alchemy methods of Che Huangmin. Brother Wang, you obtained this from the cultivation demon sea, didn't you? Wang Lin nodded. That's right, it's Che Huangmin. It was originally a sect of a 4th-level cultivation nation. But due to provoking enemies, they had to move to the cultivation demon sea. Since then, they have gone into hiding. It seems this alchemy furnace belongs to Che Huangmin. However, the method to break the seal of the alchemy furnace has been lost. Warner knows that it cannot be opened casually. It requires a series of secret techniques and the right timing and location. If you try to open it, you will not only ruin the quality of the elixirs inside, but you might even shatter them into dust, in Warner's opinion. The item must not have reached its expiration date yet. If it were open now, even if done correctly, the quality of the elixir would not be as desired. Li Muan said softly. Wang Lin nodded inwardly. Only then could it be explained why Yun Fei, after producing the alchemy furnace, didn't open it but instead wanted to exchange it for the removal of the seal. Brother Wang, Warner will go to the Cloud Heaven Sex Scripture repository to search for ancient books to unlock its seal. If this elixir has the effect of breaking through cultivation, then the chances of Brother Wang successfully breaking through to the nascent soul stage will certainly be very high, Li Muan said. Then Li Muan took out several bottles of elixirs and gave them all to Wang Lin. After Li Muan meticulously explained the usage and precautions, Wang Lin stood up and took his leave. Li Muan's eyes lingered on Wang Lin as he left the southern garden. After all, his cultivation level wasn't high enough at this time. If he cultivated for a long time in Li Muan's room, it would certainly attract attention. Therefore, Wang Lin left the southern garden and returned to the northern garden, preparing to begin his secluded cultivation again. He had made an agreement with Li Muan and also left a sound transmission jade talisman. As long as Li Muan could break the seal, she would bring him the elixir. In addition, to ensure Li Muan's safety, Wang Lin left the Demon Lord Siligu and the second Demon Lord to protect her. After all, these 2 Demon Lords working together could hold off a nascent soul cultivator for a while. That time would be enough for Wang Lin's true form to appear. Moreover, most importantly, these demon lords were connected to his divine consciousness. So, if Wang Lin was in the heaven-defying space, he could still contact them. As Wang Lin left the southern garden, a gentle voice suddenly emanated from the white mist behind him. Are you Wang Lin? Wang Lin stopped and turned around. A white mist swirled up, and from within emerged a middle-aged man with a rather handsome appearance. He exuded an aura of immortal grace and wisdom. At first glance, he looked like a completely otherworldly immortal. This man was indeed the son of the Outer Academy elder, Sun Jianwei. Wang Lin calmly said, "That's right." His eyes showed goodwill, and he smiled. "You were just looking for your grandmother, weren't you?" Wang Lin inwardly sneered. But his expression remained calm as he nodded. Sun Jianwei looked at Wang Lin and said, "For the next 2 months, I will be your grandmother. You should diligently cultivate. If you have any problems with alchemy, you can ask your grandmother. But regarding cultivation, if you have any questions, come to me." Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, calmly saying, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." "I'm still refining a pill furnace." Sun Jianwei's heart was filled with anger. his face darkening. However, he quickly smiled, glancing at Wang Lin. Then he took a flying sword from his storage bag and said, "This flying sword is called Xingfeng. Consider it my gift." "Take it." After saying this, the flying sword flew from his hand to Wang Lin. Wang Lin received it, glanced at it, and bowed in thanks. Then he turned and left. Sun Jianwei smiled as he watched Wang Lin depart, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He thought to himself, this kid's cultivation has only reached the foundation establishment stage. Using him to monitor Li Muan is the most suitable option. With his cultivation level, even if he's suspicious, he won't be able to find any clues on that flying sword. Wang Lin returned to the courtyard of the North Garden. After entering the room, he took out the flying sword. After glancing at it for a moment, he cast a restriction spell with both hands, lightly pressing it onto the flying sword. A cold aura emanated from the flying sword. But with Wang Lin's intelligence, he naturally understood Sun Jianwei's act of giving the sword without much thought. This flying sword certainly had something strange about it, and it was nothing more than a means of surveillance. Wang Lin chuckled coldly. His restriction spell was enough to restrict the flying sword's effects, while also preventing Sun Jianwei from discovering it. Setting the flying sword aside, Wang Lin took a deep breath, his right hand touching his forehead, and entered the heaven-defying space. Wang Lin knew the time was limited. 2 months in reality would be equivalent to 2 years in the heaven-defying space. He didn't have much time left. Wang Lin sat cross-legged in the heaven-defying space. Before him were more than 10 bottles of elixirs of various sizes. Some of them were sealed with wax. These elixirs were the best quality elixirs that Li Muan had refined over the past 200 years. All of them were used to increase the success rate of forming a core, perfectly suited to him. Following Li Muan's instructions, Wang Lin used the bottles of elixirs in order from left to right. Then he took the first bottle in his left hand and crushed the wax seal on the lid. Immediately, a fragrant aroma of elixirs wafted into his face. Inside the bottle were 10 large, white pills, the size of lychees. This elixir was called Jizuo Dan, a second-grade spiritual elixir. It was made from a combination of many rare and precious medicinal herbs. The effects of this elixir were immense, except for its medicinal properties. Increasing spiritual power also has the effect of expanding the meridians. The formula for this elixir is one of the 9 transformations 18 elixirs of the Wu sect. It can be said to be extremely rare in the 3rd-tier cultivation nations. Its quality is a level higher than the foundation establishment elixir. The preciousness of this elixir lies in its ability to expand meridians. Even in the Cloud Heaven sect, there aren't many of these elixirs. After all, elixirs that can expand meridians are usually of 4th grade or higher. A 2nd-grade spiritual elixir with such efficacy is extremely rare. The Cloud Heaven sect has fewer than 20 of these Chezuo elixirs, all of which were refined by Li Muan. Wang Lin held one elixir between his 2 fingers and put it into his mouth. Then he immediately began to inhale and exhale. Once inside his mouth, the elixir instantly transformed into spiritual power. Wang Lin immediately realized that it was vastly different from the foundation establishment elixir. The spiritual power contained within it was twice that of the foundation establishment elixir. Under the secret technique of the ancient god, Wang Lin absorbed all of the abundant spiritual power of the elixir. Without hesitation, he swallowed another pill. Time passed. After consuming all the Jizuo pills, Wang Lin's cultivation had reached the late foundation establishment stage. Only Wang Lin dared to try this cultivation method without considering the consequences and dangers. It's worth noting that although there was a cultivation method in the cultivation world specifically for absorbing medicinal power, it was impossible to consume such a large quantity of pills in a short period. First, absorption itself was a major issue. Depending on the quality of the pills, the absorption time varied. At least several days or even months were needed to ensure complete absorption without waste. In this respect, Besides the preciousness of the pills, which made the user unwilling to waste them, the more important factor was the immense spiritual power contained within them. Therefore, time was needed for absorption. If absorbed too quickly, not only will the body not benefit, but it could also lead to the phenomenon of evil spirits possessing the body. Furthermore, if one consumes a large amount of spiritual medicine in a short period, or in other words, uses elixirs to rapidly increase cultivation speed in a short time, although the body itself may not be in danger, it could fatally affect future cultivation. However, for Wang Lin, these issues didn't affect him at all. First, whether he consumed a lot or a little, he had the ancient god's secret technique to absorb it all. Next, the issue of future cultivation was simply his clone consuming the elixirs, not his main body. In fact, for Wang Lin, this clone was simply a super great elixir he had refined for himself. However, this pill contained a medicinal power far exceeding the maximum capacity of any other pill. After all, it was just a humanoid pill, its purpose being to help the main body break through the bottleneck and reach the nascent soul stage. After consuming the Jizuo pill, Wang Lin picked up the second bottle of pills. For this clone, forming a pill was quite difficult. Back then, the main body Wang Lin formed a pill thanks to cultivating the Huangquan ascending aperture technique, which caused 3 cold pills to form in his body. Then the cold pills merged to form a pill embryo. Moreover, thanks to the heavenly separation pill refined by Li Muan, he successfully formed a pill. Li Muan didn't reveal the name of this second bottle of pills. She only said Wang Lin would know at a glance. Wang Lin calmly crushed the wax seal, a smile appearing on his lips. Inside the bottle were 5 red pills. Wang Lin recognized them at a glance, the pills he had consumed back then, the heavenly separation pill. However, over the past 200 years, Li Muan has devoted a great deal of effort to refining the heavenly separation pill. This is indeed true. These heavenly separation pills are 3rd grade, low-level elixirs. The medicinal ingredients for refining these pills have become extinct in the Fire Flame Kingdom. After joining the Cloud Heaven sect, Li Muan, through her status as an elder, was able to obtain these ingredients to refine them. However, these ingredients were scarce in the Cloud Heaven sect. After refining 5 heavenly separation pills, she used up all the materials. In fact, most of the ingredients for the elixirs Wang Lin consumed this time were obtained by Li Muan from the Cloud Heaven sect. It can be said that the elixirs he is currently using are almost entirely composed of all the medicinal ingredients available in the Cloud Heaven sect. This type of elixir is called the Enlightenment elixir. Li Muan once mentioned it has a very powerful effect, specifically for cultivators after the foundation establishment stage. Foundation establishment stage cultivators can only consume a maximum of 1 pill. Using more can easily cause the body to swell and spiritual power to become chaotic. Wang Lin's expression was calm. After taking the elixir, he didn't even glance at it before throwing it into his mouth. Immediately, countless spiritual energy streams appeared in his previously empty meridians. These streams of spiritual energy increased rapidly. Under the impetus of the ancient god's decree, Wang Lin's spiritual power was completely restored in an instant. He immediately channeled the spiritual power, directing it towards the vortex in his danshan. The vortex, which had been dim and about to dissipate, suddenly brightened, rapidly accelerating, surpassing its previous speed. After an unknown amount of time, the number of yellow liquid drops in Wang Lin's danshan had reached 5. A sudden feeling of expansion arose within his danshan. Wang Lin blinked his eyes, then grabbed the last 2 heavenly separation pills and threw them into his mouth. He gritted his teeth, circulated the ancient god technique, closed his eyes, and sat down. The 2 heavenly separation pills were like a raging wave, intensely roaring within Wang Lin's body, forming an immense pressure. This pressure impacted his danshan, transmitting to the 5 yellow liquid drops inside. Immediately, the 5 yellow liquid drops, which had been scattered, slowly pressed together, finally colliding and merging tightly. At the same time, the effect of the heavenly separation pills intensified. causing a sound to emanate from Wang Lin's stanchion. A crack suddenly appeared on his stanchion. Immediately, the crack spread outwards. Finally, Wang Lin's entire stanchion shattered into countless small pieces. Those tiny fragments were drawn up and entered the drop of yellow liquid. In addition, there was the spiritual power transformed from the heavenly separation pill, and various substances fused together into a single mass. Finally, a fist-sized golden pill appeared in Wang Lin's abdomen, simmering with golden light. Countless long, thin tentacles sprouted from the pill, connecting to the meridians. With their slow movement, waves of immense spiritual power surged through the meridians. In an instant, they circulated throughout Wang Lin's body. At this moment, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. The light flashing in his eyes was so intense that others couldn't look directly at him. The barrier between the foundation establishment and golden core stages had been breached by Wang Lin. Meanwhile, Li Muan had been in the Cloud Heaven Sex Scripture Repository for almost a month. For a month, she had hardly left the place, spending all her time searching through ancient texts in an attempt to find a way to unlock the pill furnace seal. In fact, she had found 3 methods to break the seal so far. However, all 3 methods carried a slight risk of destruction. When the seal was broken, it would simultaneously cause significant damage to the elixir, potentially rendering it useless. This was something Li Muan could not accept. She understood that this type of elixir was likely the key to Wang Lin's breakthrough from the core formation stage to the nascent soul stage. Sen Zhenwei had always been paying attention to Li Muan's actions. He was very suspicious of her spending so much time in the scripture repository, feeling that something was amiss. However, no matter how he analyzed and judged, he couldn't discern the truth. As for his disciple Wang Lin, he had been in seclusion for a month, not seeking out Li Muan even once. The flying sword he had placed beside Wang Lin showed no reaction. Everything seemed normal. But a trace of doubt still lingered in Sen Zhenwei's heart. However, the time until the dual cultivation was only a little over a month away. In the past few days, people from other sects had been coming to offer congratulations, keeping Sen Zhenwei busy with entertaining them, leaving him no time to pay attention to these matters. Several late-stage nascent soul ancestors of the Yantia sect also knew that Li Muan was not yet willing to agree, but they didn't pressure her too much. They didn't question her frequent stays in the scripture repository, and even made things more convenient for her. They even opened the previously restricted inner chambers for Li Muan to see, seemingly to bridge the gap created by the dual cultivation. With only 20 days left until the agreed-upon dual cultivation date, Li Muan finally found a method for breaking the seal in an ancient text within the scripture repository that was far more reliable than the 3 previous methods. Deep down, she analyzed and assessed that this method had a 50% chance of not damaging the quality of the elixir inside the furnace. Moreover, even if there was damage, it wouldn't have to. Much impact, and the probability of the elixir becoming a waste elixir was as low as possible. She realized the time was running out, so she gritted her teeth and decided to use this method. After making her decision, Li Muan immediately wrote down the method. However, she didn't leave immediately, but instead read some more ancient texts. About a day later, she gently put down the stack of texts, made a few more notes, and then turned to leave. In fact, during her month in the scripture repository, she recorded many questions every day and examined numerous texts with different contents, not just searching for a way to break the seal. The reason for this was to deceive others. Li Muan was not someone who had just embarked on the path of cultivation. On the contrary, she had experienced many things. At the same time, she was inherently intelligent and sharp-minded, thus honing her cunning. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult for a woman to survive in this cruel cultivation world. This caution was actually somewhat related to Wang Lin. It could be said that Li Muan's cautiousness gradually developed during her time living with Wang Lin in the demonic cultivation sea. After parting ways with Wang Lin, this very caution had saved her life many times. She knew that the Cloud Heaven sect, especially Sen Zhenwei, would naturally be suspicious of her staying in the scripture repository for such a long time. And thus, he would naturally find ways to track her to find out what she was searching for. From then on, Lee Muan's caution proved very effective. Even if someone were to investigate, it would be difficult to find her true purpose among the vast collection of ancient texts. Furthermore, even searching through the sealing technique record-keeping technique would be useless. To mislead others, Lee Muan's records were divided into more than 10 categories. As for the sealing technique, it was only a tiny, insignificant part of the enormous amount of information. A short while after she left the scripture repository, Sun Jianwei arrived. Upon entering, he raised his right hand, and immediately a purple-yellow token appeared in his hand, clearly inscribed with the character Yun. As soon as the token appeared, the space 3 meters in front of him warped, and two men in gray robes emerged. They glanced at the token, immediately knelt on one knee, and respectfully said, "Outer sect disciples, we pay our respects to the Yun sect master." This scripture repository has always been looked after by our outer sect disciples. During the month you two were monitoring Elder Li, did you discover anything? Sun Jianwei's expression was anything but calm. He asked in a somber tone. A man in gray immediately replied respectfully, Elder Li's examination of the scriptures was rather disorganized. He observed almost everything, from prescriptions to medicinal properties. From my observation, Elder Li didn't seem to pay particular attention to anything. Sun Jianwei frowned. He couldn't believe Li Muan would waste the opportunity, spending over a month here looking around haphazardly. After a moment of contemplation, his cold voice rang out again. But did she take any notes? The man in gray calmly replied, yes. However, what she did record was also very disorganized. Elder Li seemed to have no specific goal. Of course, there's another possibility. Sun Jianwei's eyes flashed, and he softly shouted, "Speak." The man in gray remained calm, saying, Elder Li's mind is extremely sharp, and her character is cautious. She anticipated someone would be following her, so she deliberately acted mysterious, reading the scriptures haphazardly to conceal her intentions. If that's the case, then she has obviously succeeded. Sun Jianwei snorted softly. He had already guessed this, but he thought to himself, there are only 20 days left, and he really wants to see what else Li Muan can do. Moreover, regarding Li Muan's acquaintance with that person, Sun Jianwei no longer felt apprehensive. The dual cultivation had already been decided by several ancestors. If that person appeared to cause trouble, he wouldn't need to intervene. Just a few late-stage nascent soul ancestors would surely ensure that person never returned. After Wang Lin successfully formed his core, he consumed the remaining pills. The pills that entered his body were absorbed by the ancient god technique. Gradually, the number of elixirs he consumed increased, and his cultivation level steadily rose, breaking through the early stage and entering the middle stage. However, Wang Lin felt this speed was too slow. He disregarded the consequences and continuously consumed more elixirs. However, as the number of elixirs increased, he clearly felt the medicinal effects gradually diminishing. Li Muan had mentioned this phenomenon to him before. It was a habit. Once he consumed too many elixirs, his body would undergo some strange changes. Although the spiritual power in the elixirs remained unchanged due to the strange transformation of his body, often, as soon as the elixir entered his mouth, before the ancient god technique could even circulate, more than half of its spiritual power would silently dissipate. This phenomenon is called body blockage. This problem is very common among cultivators who frequently consume elixirs. To solve it, there is only one method: to consume even more precious elixirs. Otherwise, there would be no other solution. Even after a long time, the physical barrier persisted, never disappearing. After continuously consuming the elixirs for many days, a physical barrier had appeared in Wang Lin's body. But this couldn't stop him from continuing to consume more medicine. Li Muan had already devised a countermeasure against the possibility of developing a physical barrier. In fact, with the alchemist Li Muan by his side, Wang Lin didn't need to ask for elixirs himself. She had already made adequate preparations. Wang Lin picked up the second bottle on his right. This bottle contained the key to resolving the physical barrier. The medicine inside was called the barrier-resolving elixir. In reality, the elixir hadn't completely dissolved the physical barrier. However, Li Muan had collected many rare medicinal herbs and refined them to help the body absorb the spiritual power of the herbs. Judging by its grade, this elixir is only a first-grade elixir, but if used appropriately, it can produce miraculous effects in some cases. After consuming the barrier-breaking elixir, Wang Lin immediately grabbed a bottle of elixirs and poured them all into his mouth. Under the effect of the barrier-breaking elixir, the elixirs instantly dissolved. Although the dissolution speed didn't change much, Wang Lin's absorption speed suddenly increased. While only slightly faster, others, even if they could sense the effects of the barrier-breaking elixir and utilize this slight increase in speed, could still absorb a little more spiritual power. But for Wang Lin, the ancient god technique was an absorption technique. In this short time, under the absorption of the ancient god technique, his power instantly became much stronger. After the elixirs dissolved, the spiritual power was immediately activated by the ancient god technique without waiting for it to dissipate. In this way, Wang Lin's cultivation continued to increase rapidly. Finally, he had broken through from the mid-stage of the core formation realm to the late stage. Although he hadn't reached the complete perfection, the gap wasn't too wide. However, the elixirs Li Muan had given him had all been consumed. Today, Wang Lin, sitting in the heaven-defying space, suddenly awoke. He sensed a calling from the demon lord Siligu. According to the previous agreement between him and Li Muan, this meant she had found a way to open the core seal. Wang Lin stood up and took a step forward. His figure suddenly faded as if shattering the void, disappearing in an instant. In a room in the North Garden courtyard, a ray of light briefly appeared from the void, then quickly condensed into a figure. The figure slowly became clear, revealing Wang Lin's form. After appearing, his eyes flashed as he looked at the flying sword that had been lying on the ground for over a month. With a light flick of his right hand, the flying sword instantly flew to his grasp. Wang Lin glanced at it and immediately recognized a hidden restriction. While not powerful, this restriction was subtle and its purpose was, as he had anticipated, to monitor him. Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He raised his right hand again, and the flying sword immediately plunged into the ground. Then he pushed open the door and headed towards the courtyard. But at that moment, he suddenly stopped, frowning. The courtyard door was silently pushed open, and Chulin slowly walked in. Upon seeing Wang Lin, his expression immediately became serious. With his cultivation level, he could instantly sense that Wang Lin was completely different from before. Before Chulin went into seclusion, Wang Lin's cultivation had only reached the third stage of the Cha condensation realm. But now, even Chulin couldn't see through him. This meant that even if the other party wasn't in the late stage of the Golden Core realm, his cultivation must be at least in the middle stage or higher. A complex expression appeared on his face. Then he immediately gave a wry smile and said, "Master is being monitored and couldn't come himself. He asked me to take you somewhere." Wang Lin's gaze remained calm. He glanced at the man briefly and nodded. Chulin entered the courtyard, closed the back gate, looked at Wang Lin with a complicated expression, and continued with a wry smile, "This should I call you senior uncle, or well? Since you are a friend of master, you are my senior uncle. Senior uncle, please." Chulin shook his head. Originally, he was in seclusion when he suddenly received a telepathic message from Li Muan, ordering him to go out. Chulin, being an orphan saved by Li Muan, was extremely obedient to her. He always held her in high regard and gratitude. From Li Muan's words, he naturally guessed that the person he had taken as a disciple was unexpectedly a friend of his master. From then on, his mind was somewhat muddled. It took him a long time to reluctantly accept this truth. Therefore, after seeing Wang Lin's cultivation level change so dramatically, he was startled, but not overly surprised. He thought that the other party's cultivation level had always been like that, and they had simply been deliberately concealing it. Chu Lin went outside his room, his hands moved slightly, and a beam of light immediately emanated from the ceiling. Immediately afterward, the door automatically opened. Chu Lin turned to look at Wang Lin, then entered the room. Wang Lin didn't take a step, but instead used his divine sense to scan the room. After silently placing a restriction on Chu Lin, he slowly walked towards him. Wang Lin was always cautious with everyone. This Chu Lin had treated him well before and was also a disciple of Li Muan. But habitually, he didn't care who this person was to change his attitude. When vigilance was necessary, he would never be careless. In the room, after using his divine sense to examine it, apart from a pill furnace on the ground with a slight fluctuation of spiritual power, there was nothing else unusual. After Chu Lin entered the room, he immediately potted his storage bag with his right hand, taking out 3 jade slips, placing them in order under the pill furnace. Then he took 2 steps back, raised his hand, and unleashed a beam of spiritual light. Immediately, the 3 jade slips flashed with light, and the entire pill furnace vibrated, slowly sinking 3 inches. Chu Lin took a deep breath, stepped forward, grabbed the alchemy furnace, and rotated it half a turn from left to right. In an instant, a glimmer of light suddenly appeared in the center of the wall in front of him. The light moved swiftly, trailing a long tail. In a flash, they merged into a formation. Chu Lin stepped back a few paces, standing respectfully to one side and saying, "This formation connects to a secret room. That room is the alchemy chamber that Master has secretly prepared. Outsiders are unaware of it. Please come in, senior uncle. I will stand guard outside and report any incident immediately." Wang Lin didn't rush in, but stared intently at the formation on the wall. After a moment, he frowned, glanced at Chu Lin, and said in a low voice, "Your master is in that secret room." Chu Lin sighed inwardly, knowing that the other party wouldn't believe him. Therefore, he took out a jade slip from his storage bag and said, "This is a spiritual talisman that Master gave to his disciple. Please take a look, senior uncle." Wang Lin took the jade slip, scanned it with his divine consciousness, then glanced at Chu Lin, and without saying a word, walked towards the wall. The moment his body touched the wall, he instantly disappeared. Chu Lin's expression remained unchanged. After slowly turning the alchemy furnace, the formation on the wall also disappeared. He sat down cross-legged, opened the furnace, added a few herbs, and began refining the elixir with a very serious expression. However, his divine consciousness was still closely monitoring the outside of the room. If there was anything unusual, he would immediately inform his master. Chu Lin didn't know the relationship between his master and Wang Lin, but he knew that everything he currently possessed was thanks to Li Muan. Therefore, as long as it involved Li Muan, he would do his best. He also knew that his master was definitely carrying out something extremely secretive. This matter was undoubtedly directly related to the dual cultivation issue 20 days later. Once involved, he was very likely to be implicated. When Wang Lin appeared, he immediately saw Li Muan. Before him was a secret room, not very large. In the center of the room was a huge alchemy cauldron. 7 black dragons were cast on top of the cauldron. At this moment, purple smoke continuously spewed from the mouths of these 7 black dragons. The purple smoke slowly rose, condensing together to form a sphere. Inside that sphere was a small alchemy furnace with a golden paper taped to its surface. Li Muan's prominent figure was staring intently at the furnace, her eyes showing great tension. After seeing Wang Lin enter, she softly said, "Above this place is the main hall square of the Cloud Heaven sect. To break the seal, one needs the assistance of the 7 heaven-shattering cauldrons of the Cloud Heaven sect. The origins of the heaven-snatching cauldron of the Cloud Heaven sect are shrouded in mystery. Legend says that this cauldron was personally forged by the founder of the Cloud Heaven sect and then sealed in Cloud Heaven Mountain, left for future disciples to find if they were destined to. Ordinarily, even the Cloud Heaven sect's patriarch, despite his extraordinary cultivation, was only at the transformation god stage. After all, the Chu Kingdom was only a third-tier cultivation nation. Therefore, even if the cauldron he forged possessed some divine power, it wouldn't be exceptionally strong. However, the power of the heaven-snatching cauldron is somewhat incomprehensible. Even the phrase heaven-snatching doesn't fully describe it. An ancient Cloud Heaven sect text contains a legend that says the 9 heaven-snatching cauldrons were actually something the Cloud Heaven sect's patriarch encountered while traveling. Upon his return, he successfully forged them based on his memory. The reason it's called the 7 Peaks is because, with the ancestor's cultivation level, he couldn't integrate everything in his memory into a single peak. Therefore, he had to divide it into 7 peaks to engrave all his memories onto them. That's why there are the 7 Peaks of Heaven hang. In fact, the 7 Peaks of Heaven being also has a miraculous aspect. It cannot leave Cloud Heaven Mountain. Once it leaves this place, it immediately turns into a pile of scrap metal. This phenomenon even attracted the attention of several high-level cultivation nations who came to investigate, but ultimately they couldn't find anything. However, because of this, they abandoned their intention to seize it and instead offered assistance. That's why Cloud Heaven sect was able to develop so rapidly. Currently, it holds the title of the #1 sect in Chu Kingdom. Li Muan's expression was very serious. She looked up and stared at the 7 black dragons spewing mist from the alchemy furnace. She said softly, "The method to break the seal requires perfect timing and favorable circumstances. Tonight is when the Cloud Heaven sect is refining pills in the main hall. We must take advantage of the fact that the Heaven Hang cauldron is refining pills to sneak down here. That way, we can break the seal." Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he walked to Li Muan's side, carefully examining the cauldron, then calmly said, "Does the Cloud Heaven sect refine pills every month during the full moon?" Li Muan nodded slightly, her gentle and pleasant voice resonating. "It is at that time that the Heaven Hang cauldron is at its most effective. In fact, only the elders have the privilege of refining pills once a month using the Heaven Hang cauldron. Some particularly precious elixirs require the Heaven Hang cauldron for refinement to increase their quality and success rate." Wang Lin nodded slightly, observing the 7 dragon cauldron. He said, "Is this cauldron also a Heaven Hang cauldron?" Li Muan smiled and gently said, "This cauldron isn't a Heaven Hang cauldron, but its effect isn't much different. This alchemy cauldron was secretly crafted by Wanner during her years at the Cloud Heaven sect after learning about the 7 Heaven Hang cauldrons. Originally, it was intended as a final trump card. If the Cloud Heaven sect forced Wanner to do something, Wanner would use this cauldron as a conduit to affect the 7 Heaven Hang cauldrons, causing them to instantly shatter during alchemy. At that time, the endless spiritual power accumulated in the cauldrons over thousands of years would explode in an instant. This would keep the nascent soul cultivators of the Cloud Heaven sect busy repairing it, leaving them no time to chase after Wanner. After all, these cauldrons are more important than anything else." Wang Lin smiled and nodded without speaking. His gaze lingered on the cauldron. After a long while, he suddenly said, "You just said that this is the 7 heaven-snatching cauldrons outside the main hall, and that it contains 1,000 years of spiritual power." Li Muan was stunned, then nodded, saying, "That's right. The cauldron contains 1,000 years of spiritual power. Moreover, that's not even counting the countless elixirs the heaven-snatching cauldron has been used to refine over the years. Therefore, the spiritual power within the cauldron has naturally accumulated even more." Wang Lin's eyes suddenly lit up. He walked around the 7 dragon cauldron, examining it briefly, and lightly tapped its body with his right hand. Immediately, a clear ringing sound emanated from within the cauldron. Without turning around, he continued, "Is it possible to transfer the spiritual power from the heaven-snatching cauldron above down to this cauldron?" Li Muan's eyes widened. After a moment, she reacted, exclaiming, "You want to cultivate inside this cauldron?" Wang Lin turned around, smiling approvingly. "That's right. If it were cultivation within the cauldron, of course, one would reap greater rewards with less effort. However, this wasn't a clone, but the main body." Li Muan's expression became strange. But at this moment, suddenly, the 7 black dragons on the cauldron spewed out thicker mist. Each stream of black mist merged together, almost forming a dark cloud. Inside the dark cloud was the sealed cauldron. A pink light flashed from the cauldron. At the same time, the seal, though not windy, slowly rose and fell continuously. At this moment, in the main hall above the secret chamber, several elders of the Cloud Heaven sect were gazing intently into the air. Everyone was silently calculating the time. These elders were all alchemists of the Cloud Heaven sect, the most prominent among them being Yangzi, one of the 3 5th-grade alchemists. Yangzi was originally the first disciple of the Cloud Heaven inner sect and should have been the sect's administrator. However, he willingly abandoned his power and devoted himself entirely to alchemy. His passion for alchemy reached a frenzied level. He disregarded cultivation and power. One could say he cared nothing about anything else in the world, his sole obsession being alchemy. Yangzi's goal was to create the legendary 9th-grade divine elixir. However, his goal was far too ambitious and unlikely to be achieved. It's worth noting that even a 6th-grade cultivation nation could only produce 6th-grade elixirs. Even the most exceptional geniuses could at most produce 7th-grade lower-grade elixirs. It was precisely because alchemy was so difficult that the Cloud Heaven sect received protection from the giant demon clan of a 4th-grade cultivation nation. It's important to know that being able to refine a 5th-grade elixir is already the limit for a 4th-level cultivation nation. Therefore, the status of the Cloud Heaven sect within the giant demon clan is evident. As a 5th-grade alchemist, Yangzi's cultivation has reached the early nascent soul stage. In fact, if he hadn't devoted himself to alchemy, his cultivation would undoubtedly have reached the late nascent soul stage, making him one of the Cloud Heaven sect's elders. Although his cultivation is only at the early nascent soul stage, his status remains very high. Compared to outsiders like Li Muan, he is even more revered by the Cloud Heaven sect. Today, he is preparing to refine a 5th-grade spiritual elixir. He has been preparing for this for several years. At this time, besides him, the other 6 people are all summoned by him to refine the sacrificial elixir. The so-called sacrificial elixir is a unique alchemy method devised by Yangzi himself. In his concept of alchemy, refining elixirs is an act against the heavens and therefore requires sacrifices. This was similar to the ritual of worshipping heaven and earth, except that the offerings he prepared were elixirs. At first glance, Yangzi's hair was completely white, making him look somewhat aged. But his eyes always gleamed with a sinister light, giving him a somewhat eerie aura. None of the 6 alchemists standing behind him dared to look directly into his eyes. It's important to know that this kind of sinister light could actually steal the hearts and minds of others. If applied to alchemy, it could directly see through the cauldron, even into its interior. This was definitely related to the fact that he had eaten a netherworld elixir years ago. The netherworld elixir was a bizarre elixir. Only 1 in 10 who consumed it succeeded, and if they failed, the consequence was blindness. Such a vicious elixir was naturally not bad. If one successfully absorbed a netherworld elixir, their eyes would automatically develop netherworld eyes. On his path to alchemy, the netherworld eye was a crucial factor in his progress. At this moment, Yangzi, dressed in a loose, gray robe, gazed at the sky for a long time before frowning and shouting, "I am practicing alchemy. No one is allowed to watch." "Sect Master, don't you know that?" 3 people emerged from behind Yangzi, led by the Sect Master of the inner sect of the Cloud Heaven sect. He smiled awkwardly, then looked at the other 2 and said with a wry smile, "You see?" I told you long ago that no one is allowed to watch when I'm practicing alchemy. He then bowed to Iangzi and said loudly, Senior brother, these two are distinguished guests from the third-tier cultivation nation, the Heavenly Martial Kingdom. They admire your reputation and wish to watch you practice alchemy. Brother, look. The two figures behind him were tall and thin, yet their entire bodies exuded an immense aura, clearly indicating their cultivation level was not low. Iangzi raised his eyebrows, his voice icy cold, and shouted, Get out! The sect master's expression remained unchanged, but the two guests from the Heavenly Martial Kingdom immediately changed their expressions, a cold smile appearing on their faces. However, they didn't show their anger openly and immediately turned and left. The sect master of the Cloud Mountain inner sect sighed. He had already made Iangzi's attitude clear to the two guests from the Heavenly Martial Kingdom, but they still deliberately came to observe. He sighed again and hurriedly chased after the two envoys to strike up a conversation. After all, these two had come to buy elixirs, and they had offered quite high prices, which tempted him, so he needed to appease them a little. After the three left, Iangzi continued his calculations. About 10 seconds later, his eyes suddenly flashed, his hands continuously forming seals, his body leaping into the air, separately unleashing 7 spiritual techniques towards the 7 heaven-snatching cauldrons. His loose, flowing robes billowed in the wind, appearing somewhat inexplicable. The 6 alchemists standing on the ground simultaneously showed expressions of reverence. Under the effect of the techniques, the entire 7 heaven-snatching cauldrons immediately trembled. They began to move, as if stirred by an invisible hand from the heavens, forming a circle. Within this circle, 6 cauldrons surrounded a central cauldron. At the same time, in the secret chamber below the square, the 7 dragons above Li Muan's refining cauldron also sensed it, emitting hissing sounds. Li Muan took a deep breath, bit her finger, and then formed a seal. Fresh blood transformed into 7 symbols, which flew towards the 7 dragon cauldrons one after another. Instantly, the 7 black dragons seemed to come alive, roaring and flying up from the cauldron, intertwining with each other. In an instant, the 7 black dragons transformed into illusory images of alchemy cauldrons. 6 of them formed a circle, suspended in midair, while the central cauldron slowly sank, merging with the cauldron refined by Li Muan. Wang Lin's eyes flickered. Without a word, he raised his right hand, striking a circle of afterimages onto the ground. Immediately afterward, he clasped his hands together, chanted a spell, and shouted, My true self, manifest. Silently and without a sound, Wang Lin's true self, with his silver hair and a purple dot between his eyebrows, coldly emerged from the circle of afterimages on the ground. The moment he appeared, the secret chamber instantly felt as if it had fallen into a freezing winter. Even the 7 black dragons that had transformed into illusory alchemy cauldrons in midair involuntarily became slightly blurred. Li Muan gazed at Wang Lin's true self in astonishment, her eyes recalling many things before brightening. This was the figure she had been waiting for the past 200 years. Compared to the main body, the clone was truly far inferior. After the main body appeared, his eyes were icy cold as he advanced. Upon reaching the central cauldron of the secret chamber, he tilted his head and glanced at Li Muan. Li Muan felt a chill run down her spine from his icy gaze. That look was incredibly familiar to her. 200 years ago, when they met, he had looked at her with the same eyes. Although now, the coldness in his eyes was even more profound than it had been back then. Li Muan took a deep breath, quickly formed a hand seal, and chanted an incantation, controlling the cauldron lid to slowly move to the side. The main body, Wang Lin, without hesitation, jumped up and sat cross-legged inside the cauldron. At that moment, the cauldron lid closed. Meanwhile, in the square above the secret chamber, Iangzi opened his hands and muttered something under his breath. Then a dark light flashed in his eyes as he stared intently at the cauldron in the center. Suddenly, a thick cloud of smoke emanated from the cauldron. This smoke dispersed, transforming into a large, horizontal green hand. Iangzi took a deep breath, and from a storage bag he produced countless rare treasures, merging them into the large hand above. Following this, the large hand clenched, transforming into a wisp of smoke that floated back into the cauldron. Iangzi's eyes flashed, and he shouted, sacrificing the pill. The sacrificial 4th grade demon blood pill. As soon as he finished speaking, one of the 6 people standing on the ground stepped forward a few steps and patted his storage bag. A white jade bottle flew out. He crushed the wax seal on the bottle's mouth, then went to the side of the cauldron and carefully took out a blood-red pill. As soon as the pill appeared, the air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. His face turned slightly pale, and his hand trembled slightly as he held the pill. But he gritted his teeth and threw the demon blood pill into one of the 6 cauldrons outside. As soon as the elixir entered, the cauldron immediately emitted a series of roaring sounds. Immediately afterward, a blood-red light suddenly shot upwards from within the cauldron, forming a blood-red pillar of light. A similar scene unfolded in the secret chamber below the square. A black dragon transformed into a cauldron suddenly flashed with red light. Immediately afterward, a cylindrical red light shot out from it. Except for the difference in size, it was identical to the blood-red pillar of light in the square above. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he carefully observed the scene before him, and he asked in a low voice, "What kind of alchemy technique is this?" Li Muan's eyes also showed respect as she lowered her voice and said, "This is the sacrificial elixir refining technique, devised by Iangzi himself. Simply put, it's a method of refining 5-grade spirit elixirs by sacrificing many 4-grade spirit elixirs. Although this method doesn't have a high success rate, it's still considerably better than the normal refining method." At this moment, above the square, Iangzi's eyes flashed, and he shouted, "Sacrifice 4th grade Luo Lin pill." Another person on the ground approached the pill cauldron, carefully taking out a blue pill from their storage bag and placing it inside the cauldron. Immediately, a blue beam of light appeared inside the cauldron. Then, Iangzi continuously produced for more 4th grade pills. 6 beams of light of different colors emerged from the 6 cauldrons. Even outside Yuntian Mountain, they were clearly visible. Iangzi felt a little nervous. He stared intently at the central cauldron. He muttered to himself, "It must succeed. It must succeed. If this time I succeed, I will have 3 5th-grade elixirs in my hands, and together with the remaining 3 from my sect. That will make 6. Then I will use the 5th-grade elixirs as a sacrifice, and we can combine them once and try to refine a 6th-grade spiritual elixir." His eyes flashed with a dark light as he stared intently at the central cauldron. After exhaling, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "You 6, begin the refining process." The 6 alchemists' faces showed excitement. If this refining process was successful, they would be able to see a 5th-grade spiritual elixir. This kind of glory was what alchemists pursued their entire lives. The 6 of them leapt up one after another, each sitting cross-legged on one of the 6 cauldrons. At this moment, their entire bodies merged into the 6 pillars of light. Their hands formed incantations, chanting spells, continuously urging the spiritual power within their bodies. Iangzi did not. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly lowered himself, finally sitting cross-legged and suspended above the central cauldron, closing his eyes and remaining silent. At that moment, inside the secret chamber beneath the square, the several alchemy cauldrons transformed from the black dragon, just like those in the square. Each emitted 6 beams of light of different colors. Within each beam of light was a sealed alchemy furnace. Beneath the furnace was the alchemy cauldron crafted by Li Muan. Inside the cauldron was Wang Lin's true form. Although the true form was inside the cauldron, it hadn't absorbed any spiritual power. All preparations at this moment were aimed at breaking the seal. As for absorbing spiritual power, that could wait until after the seal was broken. Li Muan's expression was solemn. Her hands quickly changed incantations, striking towards the 6 beams of light. Immediately afterward, countless threads emanated from the 6 beams of light. These threads slowly extended, eventually attaching themselves to the sealed alchemy furnace above. Li Muan was using this method to steal some of the spiritual power from the fourth great spiritual elixir she had prepared. The method of breaking the seal requires a place with extremely abundant spiritual energy. In fact, the method Li Muan knew to break the seal only had two requirements regarding geographical advantage. That is, not only must it be a place with abundant spiritual energy, but it must also be a place without roots. Yangzi had already helped her solve this. Now, all that remained was waiting for the right time to break the seal. Besides geographical advantage, the second crucial point was timing. Timing meant determining the exact time before the seal was applied. Only by doing so at the same time could the seal be broken. The smaller the time difference, the lower the chance of ruining the elixir. Conversely, if the difference was too great, the likelihood of the elixir being destroyed increased. Under Li Muan's explanation, Wang Lin understood these things clearly. The current problem was determining the exact time before the seal was applied. Li Muan had searched through many ancient texts and finally found the time. The yin energy clashing with the yin energy. The so-called yin energy is at midnight, and the so-called yin energy is at midnight. Therefore, the best time to open the seal is at midnight. This is the optimal time. It's important to know that whether refining or sealing a pill, one must choose the time when yin and yang are separated. Of course, this special attention to detail only applies to the creation of exceptionally precious elixirs. For ordinary elixirs, there's no need to choose that particular time. However, this speculation isn't entirely accurate. In reality, some alchemists, to prevent theft of their sealed alchemy furnaces, intentionally alter the sealing time. Even if someone obtains the furnace without knowing the exact time, they will ultimately be unable to seize the elixir inside. The method Li Muan found involved using powerful spiritual energy to attack and solve the problem. She used slightly reduced quality elixirs to stimulate the alchemy furnace, causing the seal to break. Thus, as long as the timing wasn't too different, the furnace could be opened reliably. The damage to the elixirs would also be significantly reduced compared to the normal opening method. However, if the timing was too far off, the elixirs could still be rendered useless. Because of the alchemy cauldron, Yangzi's chances of success in this alchemy attempt won't be high. Based on my understanding of him, he's very likely to perform a blood sacrifice. After the blood sacrifice, his spiritual energy will be even higher. That's the opportune moment to attack the alchemy furnace, Li Muan said softly to Wang Lin, her expression serious. Time slowly passed, and at this moment, in the square above, Yangzi opened his eyes. He could sense, for some inexplicable reason, that the surrounding spiritual energy was rapidly diminishing. This was fundamentally insufficient to complete the refining of a fifth-grade pill. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. It had never happened before. This was a crucial moment. He refused to give up, a cold glint flashing in his eyes as he whispered, "Blood sacrifice." The 6 alchemists within the 6 pillars of light all subtly changed their expressions, but very quickly, their eyes revealed determination. Without hesitation, they all self-destructed their inner cores. A series of loud bangs followed, and a cloud of blood mist instantly filled the square. Immediately afterward, the spiritual energy became chaotic. The entire square's spiritual energy suddenly reached its peak. Yangzi's eyes flashed. He immediately formed hand seals in the air. The alchemy cauldron beneath him resembled a whirlwind, frantically absorbing spiritual energy from all directions. At this moment, the 6 pillars of light also transformed, all rushing towards the central alchemy cauldron. Yangzi's expression became even more serious. At this moment, he absolutely could not allow any mistakes to occur. Success or failure depended on this very moment. He had failed many times before. This time, if he did not succeed, he would not give up. At this moment, in the secret chamber below, Li Muan's right hand touched her forehead, and she immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. After the blood appeared above the 6 alchemy cauldrons in midair, all the cauldrons immediately trembled. The beams of light emanating from them scattered, transforming into countless points of light of various colors, all frantically rushing towards the cauldron. The cauldron flashed with 7-colored light. In an instant, as spiritual power appeared, the seal slowly coiled up, slowly peeling away from the cauldron and falling down. At the same time, a wave of spiritual pressure like divine power emanated from the cauldron. The cauldron exploded with a bang and shattered. A large green pill, the size of a longan, appeared. But at that moment, crackling sounds rang out. Cracks rapidly appeared on the green pill. A 7th-grade spiritual pill. Li Muan's eyes widened. Although she had somewhat anticipated this, she couldn't help but exclaim, "That's not right. If it were a 7th-grade spiritual elixir, there should be some unusual phenomenon. But why is there no such thing now?" Li Muan stared intently at the elixir, her gaze unwavering, muttering to herself. Wang Lin waved his hand and grabbed it. Immediately, the elixir moved and flew into his hand. He held the elixir between 2 fingers, concentrating his gaze on it. The elixir emitted a green light, and streams of spiritual power emanated from the small cracks on its surface. At this moment, the entire secret chamber was enveloped in an incredibly dense layer of spiritual power. Is this a 7th-grade spiritual elixir? Wang Lin looked at Li Muan and asked. Li Muan took a few steps forward and stood beside Wang Lin. She carefully examined the elixir in his hand several times, then sighed and said, "To be precise, this pill is only a pseudo-7th-grade elixir. In reality, it's a 6th-grade superior-level spiritual elixir. The timing of our opening of the seal was probably slightly off, causing the elixir to break and its quality to decrease. If it had been opened correctly, its quality would definitely have reached at least 7th grade. The Chehuang sect is a sect of the 4th-level true realm, so of course they can refine a 7th-grade superior-level spiritual elixir and then store it in a seal. Judging by the quality of this elixir, it's probably several thousand years old." Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he stared at the elixir, saying, "Do you know this elixir?" Li Muan pondered for a moment, her beautiful eyes brightening, and said, "The Chehuang sect's forward-walking heavenly peak has 3 of its most famous elixirs. If water is not mistaken, this elixir is the Azure Cloud elixir. Rumor has it that it has incredibly mysterious and unpredictable effects, and breaking through to the core formation stage should be no problem." Wang Lin pondered for a moment. After collecting the elixir, he looked at Li Muan and said, "Wait for me." Li Muan nodded slightly, a hint of tenderness in her eyes, and softly said, "Don't worry, even if we fail. It's all right. With this alchemical cauldron, water can destroy the Cloud Heaven sect's 7 heaven-shattering cauldrons. Then they certainly won't have time to bother with us." Wang Lin's eyes flashed with a cold glint, and he calmly said, "It won't be that troublesome." After saying this, he glanced at the cauldron. Then, without another word, sat down cross-legged. He touched his forehead with his right hand and instantly vanished from the spot. Li Muan bit her lip. If she were absent for too long, it would certainly arouse suspicion. After a moment of contemplation, she waved her right hand, and a formation appeared on the wall. Li Muan's light body entered and disappeared from the secret chamber. At this moment, in the square above the secret chamber, Yangzi's alchemy process had reached its most intense stage. His eyes gleamed with excitement, and he muttered incessantly. After a long while, he let out a soft shout, his entire body soaring upwards, and he slammed his hands down. Immediately, the alchemy cauldron trembled. At this moment, the weather suddenly changed. The originally dark sky suddenly brightened. A golden pill, emitting a shimmering light, slowly rose from the cauldron, growing higher and higher. Behind it, 6 wandering spirits appeared around the pill. They were clearly the 6 alchemists from before, circling around it. Yangzi's expression was solemn as he clasped his hands and said in a loud voice, "6 fellow Taoists, this pill was created with your assistance. From now on, it will be called the 6th Tao Spiritual Pill. I will use it to pay homage to you all." As soon as these words were spoken, expressions of joy appeared on the faces of the wandering souls. After lingering over the pill for a while, they all dissipated one by one. At the same time, the pill slowly descended and was held in Iangzi's hand. His expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with excitement, thinking to himself, "I have succeeded. Now, I can try to refine a 6th-grade spirit pill." Meanwhile, Wang Lin sat cross-legged in the heaven-defying space. He caressed the green pill in his hand, his eyes showing a hint of hesitation. After a while, his gaze became resolute, and without a word, he threw the pill into his mouth. Upon entering his mouth, the pill immediately transformed into a stream of green spiritual power, rapidly flowing into his body. Wang Lin frantically circulated the ancient god technique to devour that endless source of spiritual power. At the same time, Wang Lin's golden core moved rapidly, growing powerfully. Gradually, a purple stream of spiritual power appeared within the golden core. As time passed, the number of spiritual energy strands increased, and Wang Lin's cultivation instantly reached the late stage of the golden core, reaching the great perfection. However, his cultivation continued to rise, his golden core constantly expanding. Gradually, a drop of yellow liquid seeped out from within the golden core, as if it were beginning to dissolve. Wang Lin's body instantly became transparent, revealing all the internal changes. His mind was calm, without a trace of fear. He sat down, focused, waiting for the moment of nascent soul formation. When the golden core completely dissolved, that would be the moment of nascent soul formation. Wang Lin had waited for this moment for countless years. In fact, his cultivation speed in the cultivation world wasn't the fastest, but it wasn't the slowest either. For Wang Lin, the meaning of nascent soul formation was completely different from that of others. Once he successfully forms a nascent soul, it means he has successfully completed the first step of his plan. The second step is to merge his clone and his main body together. Based on this merger, his main body will also be able to form a nascent soul. Once his main body can form a nascent soul, his supreme realm divine consciousness will also break through for the first time. If he truly succeeds, he will be the #1 person in Chu Kingdom. Even in the cultivation demon sea, he can live peacefully and have the resources to compete with nascent soul cultivators. Most importantly, he will have enough strength to return to Zhao Kingdom to take revenge. Wang Lin's hatred for Tang Hui Yuan has accumulated for over 400 years. That hatred is unimaginable, and no one can stop him. Anyone who stands in his way will pay with blood. So many years have passed. Wang Lin doesn't know what level Tang Hui Yuan's cultivation has reached. But no matter what, once Wang Lin's true form successfully formed a nascent soul, as long as Tang Hui Yuan hadn't reached the god transformation stage, his fate wouldn't change. Wang Lin didn't believe that, in 400 years, a nascent soul early stage cultivator could break through to the god transformation stage. It's important to know that from the nascent soul stage upwards, each minor stage is incredibly difficult to progress through. The cultivation world is like a trapezoidal tower. The higher you go, the fewer people there are. Among the 7 stages, condensing chat, foundation building, core formation, nascent soul, god transformation, soul transformation, and peak attainment, the nascent soul stage is like a dividing line. Reaching the nascent soul stage represents a cultivator having entered the true door of the cultivation world, becoming a powerful expert. Besides revenge, there was another important reason urging him to constantly cultivate: the sense of danger emanating from the long-haired man in the ancient god land. He believed that, given that person's unparalleled talent, he would certainly be able to find a way to leave the ancient god's land. Therefore, once he escaped, the first person he would seek out would undoubtedly be Wang Lin. After merging with the ancient god's inherited memories, Wang Lin felt himself transforming every day. This transformation mainly occurred in his mind. He felt himself gradually surpassing his limits, ascending to a higher level. Before entering cultivation, Wang Lin's biggest dream was to pass the imperial examinations so he could provide a better life for his parents. When his 4th uncle brought the door to cultivation, it opened a new path for him. At that time, he thought the town outside his village was the largest city. As for Chengdu, the capital of the mortal emperor, he rarely dared to imagine it and had never even been there. When he first entered the cultivation world, his dream of fame and fortune transformed into becoming an immortal. At the same time, he realized that Zhao Kingdom was merely a small land in this world. Countries like Zhao Kingdom existed everywhere. After experiencing great upheavals, Wang Lin constantly pushed himself, thinking of every possible way to rapidly increase his cultivation. His goal was to return to Zhao Kingdom, kill Tang Hui Yuan, and avenge himself. Traveling through many countries, Wang Lin gained much more knowledge and broadened his horizons. He knew he was on the Vermilion Bird Planet, and Zhao Kingdom was merely a third-level cultivation nation. Above it were the fourth-level, fifth-level, and even sixth-level cultivation nations like the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. He knew that, in reality, the highest ruler on the Vermilion Bird Planet was the Vermilion Bird Kingdom. After obtaining the ancient god's inheritance, his mind was once again shaken. In the vast, star-filled sky, there were indeed countless planets similar to the Vermilion Bird star. The power of the ancient god was immense, capable of destroying a planet at will, filling him with admiration and longing. In that instant, Wang Lin's mindset underwent a rapid transformation. His dream was elevated, relentlessly pursuing cultivation, making himself stronger and stronger. Only in this way could he survive in the cultivation world. It could be said that Wang Lin's character finally transcended hatred. He cultivated not only for revenge but also to pursue his own dream, unwilling to be trampled upon by others. He wanted his character to reach the ultimate level of a powerful being. Any powerful being needs this character, and moreover, unwavering determination. 10 days later, Wang Lin emerged from the heaven-defying space. As soon as his figure appeared, he immediately merged with his main body inside the alchemy cauldron. At the same time, above the square, the spiritual power of the 7 peaks of heaven snatching was silently and slowly entering Wang Lin's body. His main body and clone were undergoing the final fusion, and there could be no mistakes whatsoever, otherwise all his efforts would be wasted. At this moment, Wang Lin felt no fear. He was completely absorbed in the fusion between his main body and clone. Time slowly passed. Within Wang Lin's body, besides the hindering cultivation of the extreme realm, there was also a thread of heavenly tribulation. Whether he would ultimately succeed or not, no one could know for sure. Everything depended on the choice of fate, meaning waiting for the author's decision. The 7 peaks of heaven snatching in the square contained spiritual power accumulated over thousands of years, and under this method, this spiritual power was continuously transferred into Wang Lin's body. The ancient god's decree was frantically circulating like a black hole, fiercely devouring all the spiritual power. In the blink of an eye, as the clone and the main body merged, the ancient god technique also underwent a transformation. The first level of the ancient god technique can only be described in 2 words: devouring. The second level is absorbing. Devouring and absorbing are 2 completely different realms. Devouring means bringing all spiritual power into Wang Lin's body. Regardless of the attributes of the spiritual power, it is devoured by the ancient god technique, transforming it into spiritual power suitable for his cultivation. This is a passive realm. Absorption, on the other hand, is an active realm, a powerful realm capable of absorbing the cultivation of others. In fact, the power of the ancient god clan is entirely based on inheriting the ancient god technique. Every ancient god, after awakening, naturally inherits the ancient god technique in their minds. As an ancient god, only when they can cultivate the ancient god technique to the 2nd level can they truly possess powerful offensive capabilities. Using the body of an ancient god to perform the 2nd level of the cultivation technique, one can absorb any spiritual power within an infinitely large area into the body. Then, the 1st level is used to devour and digest it, thus forming a cyclical process. However, the ancient god technique is also a cultivation technique of the ancient god clan. If Wang Lin had inherited the power, he could naturally cultivate to the second level. But currently, with his mortal body, reaching this absorption level is extremely difficult. Although the ancient god technique has undergone some changes, these changes are insignificant compared to the true second level. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, the day of Li Muon and Sun Jianwei's dual cultivation ceremony arrived. Today, the entire Cloud Heaven sect was filled with a joyful atmosphere. The sky stretched for thousands of miles without a single cloud, only a single shade of blue. However, occasionally, streaks of sword light would swiftly fly towards Yantiao Mountain from all directions. Almost all the sects and cultivation families in the Chu Kingdom had sent representatives here. The vast majority were sect leaders or chief disciples in person. This level of prestige could only be achieved by the Yantia sect. No other sect could possibly achieve such a feat. Because so many people had come, the Yantia sect expanded its mountain gate, placing the entire Yantia mountain within the range of its protective formation. In addition, countless outer sect disciples were dispatched to patrol important areas and to welcome guests. It's important to know that Li Muon's status in the Cloud Heaven sect is extraordinary. After all, she's one of the 3 fifth-rank alchemists. Sun Jianwei's reputation outside the sect is also very high. His father is one of the outer sect elders, his cultivation having reached the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm. He's predicted to be the most likely candidate to reach the late stage within the next 100 years, becoming one of the Cloud Heaven sect's patriarchs. Furthermore, Sun Jianwei is the hope of the outer sect. Once his cultivation reaches the nascent soul realm, he will be appointed to a series of positions. In fact, he's been secretly chosen as one of the potential successors to the outer sect's sect master. If his father becomes a patriarch, he'll only need to prepare to take over the position of outer sect master. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the opportunity to cultivate with Li Muon. The dual cultivation ceremony today, besides strengthening Li Muon's bond with the Cloud Heaven sect, also served as an opportunity for the outer sect to elevate Sun Jianwei's status, preparing him for the future succession to the position of sect master. All representatives from the various sects understood this. This dual cultivation could be seen as a point of intersection between the inner and outer sects of the Cloud Heaven sect. After all, the Cloud Heaven sect is divided into outer and inner sects. The inner sect practices alchemy, while the outer sect cultivates Tao. The two sects have always cooperated to achieve the current status of the Cloud Heaven sect. Sun Jianwei wore a long red robe. His tall stature and gentle demeanor were striking. He also possessed a certain handsomeness. After appearing alongside the inner and outer sect masters and several elders, he stood outside the main hall to welcome the distinguished guests. Although his face always wore a smile, his eyes twitched frequently. In fact, the closer the ceremony day approached, the more anxious he became, feeling as if a great disaster was about to befall him. This feeling made him feel ridiculous. It might have been bearable on another day, but today was a momentous occasion for the Cloud Heaven sect, with almost all of its elders having emerged from seclusion. If anyone dared to cause trouble today, they would only face death, unless their cultivation reached the God transformation stage. But a God transformation stage cultivator would certainly not dare to cause trouble for the Cloud Heaven sect. Moreover, the Cloud Heaven sect had the giant demon clan behind it, and any God transformation stage cultivator would have to be wary of them. Thus, Sun Jianwei could hardly find any reason to worry. He secretly chuckled bitterly, realizing he had been overthinking things. However, despite telling himself this, he occasionally recalled the cold gaze of that person. At that moment, an old man in a gray robe stood before Sun Jianwei. After glancing at Sun Jianwei, the old man slowed his pace, and when Sun Jianwei approached, he said in a low voice, "Jianwei, don't overthink it. If that acquaintance of Li Muon dares to come here today, I will make sure he can't escape, no matter how far he runs. Even if his cultivation is extraordinary, he can't do anything. I've already discussed this with the sect master. You can rest assured." The old man's tone was calm but contained a hidden confidence. This was Sun Jianwei's father, also one of the outer sect elders. Sun Jianwei hastily and respectfully obeyed. Regarding matters concerning Wang Lin, he could conceal them from anyone, but he wouldn't hide anything from his father. This had long become his habit. Now, hearing that the sect master was also involved, his heart calmed down. Looking up, he saw a white-haired old man sitting parallel to the inner sect master, who also turned to look at him and smiled. This person was indeed Liu Fei, the sect master of the Cloud Heaven Outer Sect, whose cultivation was mysterious and unfathomable. Rumors say he has reached the late nascent soul stage. However, he cultivates a mysterious technique that can conceal his true cultivation level. Unless one's cultivation is a level higher than his, it would be very difficult to see through him. Beside the white-haired old man was the inner sect master, Song Qing. Looking closely at the people behind him, one could see that their cultivation levels varied, but each of them, in every aspect, could attain the highest position of chief alchemist in any other sect. Haoren Sect's sect master Sima, Elder Suli, has arrived. A prolonged voice echoed from afar, reverberating across the Cloud Heaven mountain range. At the same time, two streaks of rainbow light pierced through the air and stopped outside the main hall. Then, the figures of two people were revealed. One of them wore a purple robe, his face deeply marked by the passage of time. This person was the sect master of the Haoren sect, Sima Yunnan. After appearing, he immediately burst into laughter, clasped his hands together and said, "Brother Song, Brother Liu, congratulations." Beside him was Suli, dressed in green. Given his status, he naturally couldn't speak at this moment, only smiling and clasping his hands in return. The outer sect master, Liu Fei, laughed heartily, took a few steps forward, and also clasped his hands together, saying, "Taoist Sima, 10 years have passed since we last met. If it weren't for our sect sending out this invitation today, it would have been very difficult to invite you here." The inner sect master, Song Qing, also stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Old Sima, last time you promised me 1,000-year-old vermilion fruit. Did you bring it today?" Sima Yunnan smiled and said, "You two didn't have to make things difficult for me right away. Enough kudos to your memory. I've brought the fruit. But I also have a disciple who's about to reach the nascent soul stage. You must give me 180 pills, otherwise I won't give you this fruit." The three laughed heartily, exchanging a few more words. Then Liu Fei waved his hand, and Sun Jianwei immediately stepped forward, leading Sima Yunnan and Suli into the main hall. Sima Yunnan carefully assessed Sun Jianwei for a moment, smiling and saying, "Indeed, a talented individual. His cultivation has already reached the nascent soul stage. In less than 100 years, the Yantia sect has gained another nascent soul stage expert. Excellent." Sun Jianwei smiled politely and respectfully said, "Thank you for your praise, senior. I truly dare not accept it." Sima Yunnan nodded and entered the main hall with Suli. Inside, the hall was furnished with many tables laden with fine wine and immortal fruits. At this time, there were quite a few people from different sects in the hall, chatting softly amongst themselves. After Sima Yunnan entered, a wave of cheerful conversation arose. Simultaneously, Sun Jianwei retreated to the back and left the main hall. After he left, Sima Yunnan and Suli sat at a table, looking into each other's eyes. Sima Yunnan transmitted a message. "You said that person is hiding in the Yantia sect." Suli's expression remained calm as he transmitted a message back. "Sect Master, this is just my guess. I can't be certain. He exudes an overwhelming aura of killing intent. He disappeared in Yantia Mountain years ago. Moreover, 3 months ago, a mysterious person appeared in the Yantia sect. He was pursued by 3 nascent soul cultivators and still managed to leave unharmed. According to the detective's description, I feel this person is the same one I met years ago. As for whether he is hiding here or not, I don't know." Sima Yunnan pondered for a moment, thinking to himself, if this person is really as Suli said, then he must be from the cultivation demon sea, Hefe. The Cloud Heaven sect attracting the attention of demon cultivators from the cultivation demon sea is a rare good thing for my Howren sect. The heavenly one true immortal of the Luo Yue sect, Elder Shidian Lai, has arrived. Another voice rang out, and Sima Yunnan looked up towards the outside of the main hall. At this time, people from various sects also arrived one after another. Except for a few major sects that were personally hosted by Sun Jianwei, the other sects and families were greeted by disciples of the Cloud Heaven sect and led into the main hall one by one. Very quickly, the entire hall was almost full. People were constantly arguing loudly with each other, creating a somewhat boisterous atmosphere. Some, however, disliked the commotion and sat in a corner, either drinking alone or closing their eyes. On all four sides of the main hall, a circle of disciples from the outer sect stood in neat rows, all at the late foundation establishment stage. They all stood upright and silent. Soon after, Liu Fei and Song Qing entered from outside the hall. Behind them followed more than 10 elders. Sun Jianwei followed closely behind. Besides these, Li Muan was also among them, wearing a thin purple veil, her eyes calm. After everyone entered the hall, the people from the various sects and families fell silent and looked up. On the main platform, Liu Fei glanced at Song Qing, smiled, and took 2 steps back. Song Qing nodded, his gaze sweeping across the entire hall, and said in a calm voice, "Fellow Taoists, today is a day of great joy for our Yantia sect." Before he could finish, the entire hall suddenly shook. At the same time, an overwhelming aura of power emanated from the ground. As the aura dissipated, the nascent soul cultivators in the great hall involuntarily stood up, their eyes filled with terror. Their divine senses frantically searched beneath the ground. A hint of tenderness appeared in Li Muan's eyes. She knew that Wang Lin had arrived.